Mentality is what keeps us together.
Hey, this is Saya.
I'm Carol.
It's Tiffany.
I'm Nicole, and this is what keeps us together.
Basically, the group chat in your head.
Living rent free.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hey,
Please,
right.
do all the things. Do all the things. Well, if you couldn't tell by now, we have a special guest in the building today.
Woo, woo.
Before I even get into names and all the other things, I just want to say this person I have known for, this has got to be, 14? When we were 14 or 15 years
Wow.
old? Yeah,
7 years ago.
freshman year of high school. Yes. You know what?
Disrespectful. Wow, Carol's right, because it really is you lately. It really is. Because that's usually Carol's role.
Wow.
It's
All of the
Scorpio
bullets.
season.
Just like
I'm
right out the
sorry.
gate. It's Scorpio season getting rid of the introduction.
Scorpio
Without you.
season, and it just has me on one. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
Is that what it is?
It
Okay.
is.
All
I'm not
right.
lying.
Well, you know, that's
I mean,
fair.
it is my hurricane weekend.
Oh, it is.
Mhm.
I don't know if you should be proud of that, but
I know.
go for
I'm
it.
sorry.
Anyways.
Anyway, go
Right.
ahead.
Sorry. Wow. We tangent all the
This
time,
is
as y'all
us.
know. So I've known this person since freshman year of high school. We have been friends for a long time through different situations in our lives. I know them as Phiwa. Everyone else is getting to know them as Rev Phiwa Langeni. But I do want to say she's originally from South Africa, has spent decades at this point dedicating themselves to people, dedicating themselves to helping others and building relationships and bonds. I know you spent some time in Missouri, but you're now currently in Georgia, and you're working at the United Church of Christ Center of Analytics, Research, Development, and Data as the first ambassador for innovation and engagement.
Wow.
As
That's
well
impressive.
as owns quite a few businesses that I've known over the years.
Okay, entrepreneur.
Fight flex.
Yes, slight flex. And I will say one of the things that we got a chance to experience that I don't know that I've even thought about having, but her daughter and I were great friends when we were coming up. That's my dog, but anyway, all the way. We've just gone through a lot, so this is going to be a great episode in my mind. Spending some time talking to somebody who I've known for a long time and having them on is nicer. But welcome.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
Awesome to be here. Yeah, glad to be here.
All right, so we normally do our song of the week. That's not happening today.
Sorry, if you're looking forward to it. I imagine you
Yeah.
weren't, but it's fine.
I believe they were. Our discussion today is going to be on disclosure. And in general, this is just disclosing and allowing people to enter into maybe a space of you sharing something that may be personal to you or something that people do not understand or may not have any background on that. I want to start with our cultural reference. In this case, in this discussion that we're having today, we're going to be talking about trans disclosure. In general, disclosure can be a small spectrum of things, but this in particular, we're going to be talking about trans disclosure. That means across from not only gender, but also sex. So it's, disclosing who you are to others when from a trans perspective. We have a cultural reference this week that is going to be, actually, I just realized I cannot pull it up because I don't have IG.
Oh, I didn't know you canceled the whole thing.
Yeah. Nope. Sorry. Just realized. So bear with us. We're going to do a cultural reference. The cultural reference comes from a recent TikTok trend that we saw happening. We wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Okay. So I need advice, y'all, from my trans sisters. How the fuck do y'all tell dudes y'all trans? Cause I can't do that shit. Like, I'm terrified.
All right. We wanted to also, I kind of gave, but did you want to get a full definition?
Sure.
Nicole, what?
So,
Disclosure is?
definition of disclosure: the action of making new or secret information known. Trans disclosure, specifically, when a trans person decides to tell a person in any context that they are transgender instead of cisgender. Is that right? This can take place in the workplace, in friendships, medical situations, and romantic sexual relationships. GTS. Hashtag.
What's wrong with you?
That's
Yeah,
right.
no, I like to say that
on
often.
on the Googles.
Yeah.
All right.
So where we're going to kick it off is for you, Phiwa, what information do you feel entitled to when you're dating from someone else?
Yeah, it's actually very fascinating because in general, I struggle with the word entitled, right? Especially like when I do like anti-racism work as well. I think that actually is why this topic of disclosure is very difficult, right? Is that language of entitlement.
Mhm.
I don't believe anyone's really entitled to anything that you're not given, right? However, right, when it comes to like dating life, right? I guess like, okay, first of all, this is like my longest single streak. So there's that. And I'm certain though, part of that is that challenge of like, when and how do you disclose, when, on the one hand, right, like not telling someone that you're trans or you've like journeyed in some manner with your gender, it comes across as deceptive and there's like a lot of violence that can follow as a result.
Mhm.
At the same time, right, we're in this culture that's like, people want you, like kind of like the don't ask, don't tell, like the more you talk about it, the more you kind of being accused of like shoving it down people's throats. Like, well, quit talking about it. So it's like, how do you find that balance of
Right.
when to disclose and when not to, when, really being trans is like just a piece of who I am.
Right.
And not the entirety of who I am.
Exactly.
Right. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a piece that makes me whole, but it's not the whole piece of me.
I like that.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Bars.
I do. So there's nothing, even when you're meeting someone new, that you feel like they should tell you off the bat? Or is it just, you just feel like whatever they feel comfortable sharing is fine?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think for me though, it could very well also be because like my attractions, right, aren't necessarily, like, I guess I don't need to know all those details to find someone attractive. And just because I find someone attractive doesn't mean I have to be with them, So like for me, I don't feel like I need that information. I do feel like, for some folk, it is important information, especially for folk who, religiously or culture, whatever reasons, right, feel like it's not okay. For me, at least when I go into a situation, I usually just like whatever someone genders me as, like that's what I'm gonna be. Like that tends to be, for a matter of safety. So if someone reads me as a dude, like that's cool, that's what we're gonna do, right? If they read me as a woman, like I'm not gonna stop and correct them. Now if I'm in a relationship with folk, I do, spend the time and like, okay, cool, like let's work on this. This helps me feel respected and seen fully. But in when I was living in Missouri still and driving up to Michigan to go home and stuff, right? You're driving through like a lot of either southern Indiana or southern Illinois. And I used to like not even drink water or beverages so I could like avoid having to pee over this 8.5 hour, 9 hour drive, right?
Wow.
Because in this situation of bathrooms, like if I use a bathroom that I have to decide like how do people read me, so all these like trans bathroom laws, which I'm sure we'll get into some more before this conversation is over, but like the way that people decide that I guess they're entitled to police my body and somehow my gender is a threat to theirs. Like I still don't really understand that, how my being me threatens your gender or your sexuality or your fill in the blank, your religion. Yeah.
For sure. But just to be clear, we wanted to start with this question because there is a lot that can be disclosed in dating situations that has nothing to do with gender.
Right.
So like, I guess that's where we're coming from. Like I know situations where people have been on like almost relationship status of dating someone. And then they were like, oh, I also have a 2-year-old. And they were like, well, you should have told me that sooner.
Yeah.
So like, are there things like that?
No,
that
true.
and like other like topics that you feel like should be disclosed sooner rather than later in dating situations?
Those are great questions. Yeah. I mean, I feel like for me, I guess like before the relationship got kind of physical, right? I feel like there's some disclosures, for example, like, cool, like, when was your last test? Like, what do we need to know about each
For
other?
sure.
Yes.
Like, that's like for me, like, that's definitely one that, before that moment, I guess it's not really my business, I guess, right? And like, I mean, yeah, like my daughter is like, what, 24 and a half. She's had her half birthday early this week.
Love
I
that.
love that you know
and
that.
so she didn't let me stop celebrating when she was little. I was like, oh, cool, do the half birthday. And then she was like, on her 18 and a half birthday, she's like, you forgot my half birthday? I'm like, nah, bro, you're an adult now. Like,
That's awesome.
It is. I love it.
You set that bar.
all these years later,
When's
Yeah.
her birthday? Just
May.
curious.
May 8th.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nicole
Not
doing
you
the math.
already working
Wait,
the
she's
math.
a Taurus?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
a
love
Taurus and
this.
a
Oh,
Leo.
Lord.
Yeah.
What do you do
can't
with that?
tell.
I love this for her.
You can't tell. I feel like
Okay, I'm a
I-
Taurus. Don't do that.
I know, but maid Tauruses, I have two of them in my family, and they are just that little bit of characteristic. I'm like,
Nicole's like one gift. I don't care when you celebrate. You're only getting one present.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. In the interest of like making this more conversational and less interrogative, do other people want to answer the question? Like, are there things that like
Yes.
do you feel like when you were dating that you feel like
Yeah.
you should
I'm
be?
glad you said that because
Okay.
I feel like in light of
Yeah, I got
our
one.
recent postings, is Taco Tuesday a thing for you or not? Because that might be a deal breaker.
That's real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I remember when I was dating and I found out later, when I was dating, I was asking, do you have children? I feel like that's something you should tell someone. And I remember when I asked him the first time, he said no. And then I found out later, he was like, oh yeah, I'm about to go pick up my son. I was like, wait,
Did he find out while y'all were together?
Did he find out?
he knew already. I just found
lies.
out through like a casual conversation. I'm like, why would you lie about and the baby? And it was a baby too.
That's why he lied
So I
about
was
it.
like,
that's exactly why he
no,
lied about
right. I
it.
was like, no, we're not doing this.
Right.
Not you going to go visit your toddler. Like, I'm good.
Well, I've had it as bad as people not disclosing either previously being married or currently married.
Oh, currently married is
That's
important.
terrifying.
Previously
See,
married matters.
It's not a deal breaker, but hey, are you? No, it's not. But it's like, are you? Because some of that comes with stuff. That
Yeah.
you may
Yeah,
be
for
shy
sure.
to. So
Emotional stuff. Yeah, that's
a
heavy.
lot of stuff. Yeah. So I'm just like, I'm not gonna. Marriages fail. I'm not about to like not talk to you because your marriage failed.
Mhm.
I just need to know what I'm gonna be
That
dealing
baggage.
with when. Yeah. Like no, there's no. Yeah, that comes with stuff, and I need to mentally be prepared. But also, if you are currently married, working on a divorce,
Where are you in the process?
Where are we on the
Yeah.
process?
Have you filed?
Yeah.
Let's not talk about I'm single, but really I'm living a single life,
Right,
but
right.
still fully married.
You're separated emotionally, but you're still in the same
I
house.
mean,
Right.
Which
what
is it?
exactly do you need to know? Is the question.
I think I used to always ask like,
Yeah.
status and like when's the last time that you were tested. But I also used to be like, have you ever had physical relations with the man? Like, is this like, I don't ever want to be walking down the aisle and be like, oh, by the way, this is of interest to me. Like, I just wanted to know, like, from the gate, like, is this a thing or not?
You know, another good one is what do you bench? Because that's important.
What do you
For me.
say?
I literally thought I was gonna be like something so serious.
Right,
I
you
respect
have-
that. I respect that. No,
The
no,
fact
no.
that none of yours have been serious
It's
is
an important question.
It's funny to me. I mean,
I like to have fun.
I appreciate you.
Harry and I are kind of goofy,
What is
but
it? Never mind.
I need to know what you bench because that's going to make a difference in life.
Do-do-do, okay.
Oh,
Okay. And the acrobatics you have in mind. Got it.
right.
Okay.
Mind my business. Okay.
Good.
Okay. Where's the line between preference and bigotry? Trans homophobia.
So asking whether or
Mhm.
not, in this sense, with regards to do I have a preference for someone based upon, whatever your type or your preference is, but it may be
When does it cross the line?
Yeah, like it could possibly
Yeah.
cross the line into like, oh, I don't know, I only date all Black women, I only date all trans or not.
I think this
and
question also.
okay,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say I think it comes up a lot because women in particular, as Tiffany kind of referenced, is when they'll be like, "Oh, I don't want to date a bisexual man, or I don't want to date a man that has had a sexual experience with another man. So I think for a long time we were like, oh, that's a preference of mine. But as of late, it's been questionable if that's being homophobic or biphobic or what have you.
Yeah.
So is it, or is it?
Well, let me answer to clear my name because just before.
I'm not gonna go there. And I asked very vaguely. It's just but go ahead.
Well, it's not that it's a deal breaker. What is a deal breaker to me is if you're lying about it.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
If you can't be honest with yourself about it, and then it's true, that is problematic. Yeah, that creates a scary.
And I wasn't accusing
dynamic.
you. I feel you.
No, I just feel like the inference can be made, and I just wanted it to be very
But
clear.
I've also heard a lot of Black women in particular say that they don't want to date bisexual men.
Yep.
So is it a preference or is it a phobia?
Also, why is it such a question in the Black community? I feel like
I'm Black, so I don't really know about anybody else.
I don't know, but I feel like I've seen this example. I know it's gonna sound real, but on the show Sisters.
Oh yeah.
There's like a whole I feel like the entire storyline of this one particular couple is based off of this man who she has interest in, whose parents are two gay men, and he asked her to do something one time while they were intimate, and she was like, wait a minute.
He wanted her to play with his booty hole.
Yeah. And she was thrown off.
Yeah,
Not just
it's from a movie.
It is from somewhere. I can't remember. It wasn't just play with it, but he wanted to play with her box of toys with it. So she was super thrown off, and she was like, wait a minute, like, is that what you're into? And he explained to her, like, to give the background, he explained to her that, anatomically, for some men, their G-spot is
almost all men.
Okay.
All men.
Yeah.
All men like to act like they don't all.
Yeah.
You can access the G-spot easier in men through their rectum.
Their booty hole.
See, I'm trying to use politically correct shit, and here you are.
Why are we like this?
And he was just trying to explain that to her, and she's like,
"You're gay." She kept saying, "You're gay."
You're right.
That's all she kept saying.
Right. You want me to play with your booty hole and you wear panties? Like,
okay, we're getting off.
I mean, that's what she said in the story. I'm not saying that it's correct. I'm just saying that's what's in the show.
That's not why she said it's off. But okay.
Okay, but anyway, go ahead.
All right.
But no, that's definitely, I feel like, it's not even about specifically, I mean, it's, we bring it down to, Black masculinity, for example, right? Like, you can't be, like, you're not supposed to cry. You're supposed to be like firm, whatever, right? So all this, behavioral, cultural behavioral acceptances, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I would say leads into the culture of like Down Low Brothers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the fact that a lot of our Black men are imprisoned, and then we normalize prison rape as though it's like, that's just what's supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's actually, I don't remember the documentary I was watching, but like a lot of men come out of prison, and that's, if they've been there since they were kids, basically, then they kind of like start messing with trans women because, that's their way, I guess, of like still being heterosexual out in the world, but they're kind of used to like, I guess the logistics of like, male bodied or like pre-transition, trans women, and engaging in sexual activities or whatever. But like, for me at least, I struggle with that, right? So I don't know that I can determine the line for someone else, but there's some body parts that I enjoy way more than other body parts. There's certain activities and engagements, like that feel good or don't feel good, and so I feel as though, hey, back up. I'm going to back up. So, the whole thing with the church, sometimes they're like, oh, hate the sin, love the sinner. Hate that mess, right? But it always messed me up because if they're saying like the act of like having penetrative anal sex is the problem, there's a whole bunch of straights who have anal sex that, so it's not the sin then, so that always like was confusing to me. It's like, I know a whole bunch of y'all church folk out here having butt sex, like
exactly.
So even that is inconsistent, right? So I feel like, all right. Let me.
Yes, do the dance.
So yeah, so for me, that would be the line, right? So it's if like, you know, we enjoy different stuff, right? Pleasure is not the same for everybody. And I feel like that, you know, I might even say pleasure instead of preference. Because I think preference like lets us like hide and skate under different phobias. But
Okay.
some things bring me pleasure, some things just don't.
I like
And
that.
I like it too.
That actually goes well
Right.
because, yeah, I think that I always knew that I wanted to marry a black man, and people would be like, "Oh, but if I said I didn't want to date a black woman, like I'm racist," and I'm like, "But you don't understand my cultural nuance. Like, I don't want to have to explain to you why I'm wrapping my hair up because I got a silk press and why I got my bonnet on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I would have to explain that to you because you didn't grow up with that. Like, you don't know what I'm doing.
Or when you hit your head and he's concerned about you having a mental disorder and it really just being
I'm
just
scratching my head.
itchy. Like,
Right.
all my hair products come in tubs and yours don't. Like, I'm like spend all that stuff.
What do their hair products come in?
It's like bottles that squirt.
It's yeah, you got It's not one of these like
Like a salve.
Yeah.
It's totally not.
I never even thought about that.
Either.
Wow.
oh my gosh.
What a
You
time.
live in a white town and have like one row of like black, you know,
come
We
on, talk
do.
about it.
ethnic
We
hair
did.
product, like it.
Yeah.
If that,
Yeah.
We grew up
because you
there
might not
too.
find it in there.
I mean,
Now it's a little bit different.
It
But
is.
Sally's
It
finally
is.
got all the black hair products.
all of them.
That-
Who is Sally anyway? But
Right.
nah,
That's
And
a great question.
also, why is she so expensive?
I mean,
Well,
I'm going to tangent.
Okay,
Let me just
all right,
stop.
all right,
really
all right.
not that cheap. Okay, anyway.
Sorry, it'd be a supply store for me.
Okay.
Um,
I can ask the next question.
Go ahead.
or- okay. Do you want to?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you guys think that the rules for dating are different? Oh, okay. Sorry. Not all of you. Are the rules for dating different as a trans person?
I think they are, not because necessarily we choose for them to be.
Right.
I have a question back for y'all.
it is.
When is it appropriate for you to disclose that you're cisgender?
Ooh, that's a good question.
It is.
I think for us, it's assumed.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, like we don't have to disclose that information because it's assumed. That's my. I've never had to tell someone.
Yeah. I feel like we touched on this conversation when we talked about passing
Mhm.
and like what is the appropriate time to like let people know you're black,
Right.
or are you going to choose to, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I do not have an answer for that.
Well, in terms of that, because I feel like out of the four of us, I'm probably the only person that their ethnicity gets questioned out of the four of us.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You
Yeah.
said that.
So for me, in terms of that, I say it right off the bat because I feel I'm very proud to be a black woman. So when someone questions me about being a black woman, it's my first thing is to tell people that I'm black. And it's almost offensive for you to think that I'm not. But in terms of being a cis woman, I'm assuming you know I am. So that's a very fair question that for the trans community, why is the assumption enough?
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, like, do you feel like as you've changed your presentation that is do people ask, or is it assumed, or like what is your experience in being gendered, I guess, by others?
Yes, I think now I am more regularly read as male. When I was just kind of starting to transition, not so much. I mean, I had a very actually I felt really sad that I happened to have like a very curvy, very feminine, very African female body. And it just felt wasted on me, like for the longest time, you know? Because I'm like, this would be great on someone else. But
Right.
yeah, but it just wasn't, you know, so being on hormones, you know, like a lot of things, you know, have like kind of straightened, at least not as curvy, right? But still, I call myself swishy. I can't see my little rotund belly right now, but it's fine. Yeah, I'm squishy shaped, you know, like, but like, I feel as though, so nowadays, right, because like my family's not very hairy. This is like over 5 years of like hormones. Like I still can't really get facial hairs, or, you know, my voice is way lower than it used to be, but a lot of people don't know what it used to be. And so people assume that I'm young. And then of course someone got braces a few months ago. Now like someone thought I was 18, which is hilarious.
Okay,
but
get
not funny at all.
it.
But like, no, like I don't want them to see me as young because then that's another layer too. Like people, if you're younger, they disrespect you. They can speak to you some kind of way. But never speak to me a certain way, right? But having been socialized as a woman, for example, I already kind of have the sense for like if people are reading me as a man or a woman based on how they interact with me. And so I get way more respect if they see me as a man. I get like way more, they don't question me or double check my work if they read me as a man, like they did like being read as a woman. And so that's usually like how I know, you know, it's like, okay, if they talk down to me, they either think I'm young or they think I'm a woman.
Wow.
And so a few more clues, I'm like, oh, okay, got it. So
you mentioned earlier when you were out of town that if someone misgenders you, you kind of just go with it. Is that for safety reasons or just because you just don't feel like correcting them?
It's almost always for safety reasons. Yep.
Okay.
Because I don't know what they're thinking or feeling about it, right? And so like there are enough, unfortunately, like there's so many, culturally, I feel like most of the stories that we ever hear are like trans struggle and like, oh, this person got beat up or sexually assaulted or whatever. Same as like Black stories, right? All you ever saw in the media was like boy in the hood, like, you know, just kind of like ghetto fab, whatever. But it's like, we're so much more than like those things are true. But the way we don't ever hear about it makes it seem like that's like 100% of our experiences when that's, you know, not that, right? And so, but I feel like if that's all people ever hear, if you don't know any better, we're like, well, shit, I guess I got to beat you up now because, you know, that's just what happens if your transness has threatened, you know, your gender. So like they'll get clowned for, I guess, not having put me in my place, whatever that place is, right?
Right.
I will say though, for trans women, it's even more marked than it is for trans men for several reasons, I guess. You know, one is like, they're like, how dare you, right? Like, you must be punished for daring to give away this golden gift that you were given at birth, right? But also like hormonally, like testosterone, for example, you know, like helps make, I guess, the passability a lot less awkward, I guess, for trans men folk or trans masculine folk than like for trans women. Once your voice drops, it's dropped. There's no reversing it. There's certain features that come in, like you can't unmasculinize certain features without extensive surgery, which that's another barrier for folk. You know, many of us, even if you have good insurance, your insurance doesn't cover it. You know,
Right.
So there's so many barriers for even trying to be able to like get closer to being passable for, you know, at least safety reasons, but passability, that's like another layer of issues too, you know. So it's like, so for me, passability really is more about, I'm not trying to get my ass whooped, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how to fight or run. So like, please just, you know, just keep my head down. Like,
yeah. But I also
please
feel
don't fuck me.
Yeah, but I also feel like women in general are typically more understanding than, I mean, we're not a man hating podcast by any means, but you know, men are just way more like they feel like their masculinity is being questioned, or they, like you said, they feel like they need to assert themselves in certain situations. Like for women, if we're not interested, we'll just, typically it's just like a no thank you or I'm good or something. It's like
I feel like we're being biased.
Maybe. And I'm okay with that.
Well, I also am like,
but I feel like men are typically, if something happens, like for trans women, I feel like I'm not diminishing the experience for trans men versus trans women. But I feel like if you're approaching a woman versus approaching a man, the response might be a little less aggressive.
I mean, go ahead.
No, I also feel like if like it's hypothetical, obviously far-fetched. As a man, what type of ego do you have to think that everybody wants your ass?
I mean, men are, don't get me started.
I mean that's just something out there for because I feel like when you as a man are out or whatever and you're walking down the street and somebody turns your way and immediately you're like, why are you looking at me funny? Like, maybe they were looking through you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what is your ego that makes you think that like it starts feeling very self-absorbed in a moment where you immediately go into a defense mode just because somebody is maybe being polite or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
But I also feel like,
Niggas.
so I feel like the difference is that that's happened to me. Like, I've heard this same conversation in a different context, explaining being that in like my family, we were talking about like being in the locker room, like in sports, there are gay women, shocker. But sometimes if it's like, if someone in my family found out that like someone found out, like I even hate that I just said that someone on my team was a lesbian, they'll be like, oh, like, do you feel comfortable like in the locker room with her? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, oh, but you're not gonna, no. Like she knows I'm not interested in her, and past that, like it, I don't care. Like it just, it's like, it's not, it doesn't matter.
It's not a thing.
To me,
it's not
you know
a thing
I mean?
if you don't make it a thing.
Yeah,
right?
but I feel like the flip side of what you were saying is like, there's also like a trend that's happening on TikTok. Don't ask me why I know about it. That apparently is like women being like, men sleeping on their stomach is wild. Like that's sus. Like that guy is like on the DL. So I feel like
What?
not you being the problem.
I've never said it. I've seen somebody.
I said it out loud. Is that when you thought it?
No, I've seen somebody. It made me good because I've seen somebody I know that's very like rah man. I would like to think, who lays on their stomach with their feet in the air, and I don't think there's nothing wrong with it.
In the air.
You know, like when you
Is that comfortable? Not even like question of sexuality. Is that comfortable?
When you're watching TV, or like laying across your bed.
Okay, but you know what's funny is like the only time that I've seen like men like joke about this on social media is like if they're like cupcaking with bae on the phone and they're like doing like cutesy things.
Yeah.
It like is only happens in that context. But I feel like I say all that to say that I feel like where men get physically violent, women are verbally abrasive. Like
but verbally abrasive is not gonna end you dying.
It doesn't, and I'm not trying to say that is the same in that respect. Right. But I mean, it can do a lot.
Oh, I agree.
It's
still damaging for sure.
It's still like very damaging.
But wait, so can we get back to the question, original question?
Oops.
Do you feel the need? When do you feel the need to disclose that you're trans in your romantic relationship?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I just stay awkward. I'm an awkward person. And so
Okay,
I
I
usually
feel you, me
disclose
too.
that first.
Stay weird.
Okay.
And then I'm like, so in my awkwardness, like, here's just a whole bunch of stuff that you may or may not want to know about me. And
Are you in
like,
person or are you like digitally communicating, like text or call or at this point?
So, well, in recent years, it's been mostly like, on, not in person because, COVID and whatnot.
Yeah. Germs.
But I feel like exactly that does actually make it easier to disclose so that, even if you text someone right away and they might take a minute to respond, like, of course, I'm like panicking the whole time, but like, it at least gives them a chance to like consume it and take their time and respond back. Hopefully sometimes people like will anyway. We just, But like in person, I feel like that might add a little pressure, like both for the discloser and the disclosee.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, well, I need a chance to like take that in or, whatever that disclosure is, right? Someone's like, hey, I'm HIV positive. Like there's some level of, okay, or like I got herpes. Like, so how do you, I should say, but any kind of disclosure, I guess, like just being able to, I just absorb it and then figure out, okay, cool. Like
how you're going to respond.
You can still respect someone.
Or move forward,
right.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. Like that's the line that I feel like I can't go, I'm not down to go there, but it doesn't mean I have to disrespect you or violence you because that is just not, it's not a thing for me. I mean, it's maybe across like a personal boundary that I have that I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know. I'm not down with that, Yeah.
So pre-COVID, would you have done that conversation in person or via text message or phone call?
So here's the thing about me. Remember I said I was really awkward?
Yeah.
So I will literally sometimes I just like go to the other room and then text it, even if we're there. Like, I feel like my written communications are better than like my spoken communications sometimes. So,
yeah, same.
Or I might be like, I got to tell you something, but I don't know how to say it, so I'm just going to type it. Like, we'll be sitting next to each other. I'll just text it to you, So I feel like,
oh yeah, I do that.
Have you ever been? Me kind of embodying my whole thing, like me, my whole self is like that's part of it too. Is like my written communications are better.
Yeah.
So let's just be awkward together.
Yeah. So what is your comfort level? Because I would like, you've been communicating with this person for a while. Have you been a few dates in? Only reason why I'm asking is because I would assume doing it right away via text message is an easy, safe way to communicate this, knowing the state of the world and how people react.
And to add additional context to that, the rest of the cultural reference, like it's a carousel, and like I would say like 80% of the responses to the question are, I do it in text, I do it before we meet, I do it, you know, not in person for safety reasons. But then again, they're trans women too.
Yeah. Like if I don't meet you in person and we're just talking, we're not meeting until you know I'm trans. Like that's like, you let me know up front, like, no thanks. All right, cool. You know, it sucks, but I'd rather know now, right?
Right.
Because what I'm not willing to do is get any further and then be in person. And all of a sudden she's called some dudes to come, you know, kick my ass, whatever, because I can't run and I can't fight. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, just, I don't need that kind of violence in my life.
Just curious, because I can't fight either.
4 days before Saya's.
Said he's a Leo.
Okay, never mind.
Always talking about new elders.
I didn't know if can't fight was like a
Taurus trait.
It is. Apparently, it is.
It's not. One of the Tauruses I know is a pit bull.
Got these hands.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Either way, no. Leos would not have been.
That's interesting. I remember experiencing that too. I feel like when I was dating and I was like, I think I was like on, I don't know, one of these apps. And I was just like, I'm not having sex. Like, I'm not having sex with you. Like, unless we're like in a relationship, if we make it to that phase, like, then we can talk about it. But if this is a deal breaker for you, then we probably shouldn't meet. So like, again, like disclosure happening in like different contexts and like what that means for you and how people react is, you know.
For sure.
I think I was that way with weight. Like when internet dating became a thing. Like Black Planet and MySpace, when you can make your own page and things like that.
Throwback.
Yeah.
Throwback. This is right here.
But not even, those are not even dating sites. That's how we
They
know.
were.
Yes, they were.
They
They were not
definitely
advertised as dating
No,
sites.
they weren't advertised, but that's what they were.
But that's
And I
exactly
felt
what
like
they
that.
were.
Those were definitely one of
MySpace
those
was.
things I
Same.
was disclosing. Like I would always put up
You're
an extra
old.
thick picture of myself. Like, yeah, there's
Know
no.
what
This
you
is
gonna
not
get.
an athletic body. I mean, I'm athletic, but
Don't let this body fool
I'm
you.
flexible.
that's not what. No, don't take me to the court. Because the only thing I'm gonna do is ask for snacks.
Mm.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not balling.
Cosign.
Speaking of MySpace, people helped me set up my first.
Oh,
Taught me all
P1 your
the.
top
I was just
8?
about to ask the same thing.
I think so.
I wasn't even on MySpace. I wasn't even on MySpace.
You were coding, huh?
Yeah.
Yep.
I was in
Mhm.
the,
You
I
did
did
all
some
those
IT. I was in
embedded
computer science.
things.
There were at Alma.
I was at community college at first. So I was doing all my like computer science stuff. So
I
was
know.
like,
I'm
yo,
calling
how
up
do
in the
you-
middle of the night. Yo, how
used
do
to be
I
a
make
master at that.
this background? What's the code?
I had a purple.
Wait, I
sparkly
need.
background.
Of course you did. How did I
What
know that
colors?
was your
How do I know
background?
what to use for the colors? Like everything, scrolling backgrounds.
Yeah,
People had
everything.
Me-
Music,
all of it.
all it.
All
I
of
was
it.
like,
Yeah.
hacking into
And
the
mind you, I
mainframe for
didn't.
science.
I did not.
Not hacking into the mainframe.
Quite literally, I call up all the time.
You know what?
'Cause I knew nothing about
It's your
computers.
shirt right now. This whole conversation.
Yes, that's exactly. That's
It fits your
exactly what
shirt. Yeah.
I get various
That's
emails.
wild.
Go ahead and put this in.
That's so
Terrible.
dope. That's so dope.
So
Okay.
I will say, disclosure wise, what's harder for me to disclose is that I'm a pastor.
I mean, I
can see that, actually.
actually is.
Yeah, I can see that.
I've been telling people I work for a nonprofit. Like everything but church. Like it's
How's that realization like?
Yeah.
You lied to me.
So do you, as a pastor, I did want to get into like the religious aspect of it. How has that been? Because a lot of so what do you mind disclosing the denomination?
yeah. United Church of Christ, UCC.
Okay, that's Christian, right?
Some people might say we're not. We're like on the edge of Christianity.
Okay. So I know
Yeah.
just
Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say,
Sorry,
how
I'm
does that?
confused.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a denomination that's like super progressive. I hate that language of progressive,
Oh,
but
okay.
so it's like, the first mainstream ones like ordained gay folk, trans
Okay.
folk, queer folk, black folk
Got you.
back in the day,
But is it Bible
it's
based?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, well,
Oh,
I feel like, it's a primarily white denomination. Not that white folk are not Bible based, but like I feel like
Gun cock.
There's
This is getting offensive.
wait,
Nah.
I must say that get cut out.
You don't have enough white
No,
listeners
it's
for it
fine.
to be offensive.
We might.
That was the facts.
It just hits different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
It hits different. But like, I mean, this tradition is specific, right? So it's got like roots in like kind of like a high intellectual, you know. So it's very, you know, I like to bring the spirituality into it sometimes, you know.
Mhm.
Just clapping on the 1 and 3s in lots of the churches, right? And I'm a 2 and 4 clapper.
Wow, what a time.
Wow.
Yeah,
Lord,
yeah.
we lift your name on
Stop
high. Sorry.
Why are you laughing? Because you're like, yeah, that is how our sermonic selections go.
I cannot. That's how I sing for real. So I'm trying to like cry.
Oh, it's very
Laugh out
Hillsong,
loud.
huh?
Oh.
No, I'm just like,
Y'all do a lot of Hillsong, don't you?
But no, we done in an hour, so
You're done in an hour?
Wow.
We haven't even
An
got
hour.
through praise and worship in an
That's what I'm
hour.
saying. That's what I'm saying.
That's when the
I was
preacher
hooked.
starts.
The way I told my 1 and 3 friend one time how long our church was, she was like, "What? Wait, on your Sundays?
Are you accepting new members? Are you accepting new members? 'Cause right now, I fast forward.
Oh, you have bedside Baptist? Not yet.
An hour sounds
Okay,
heavenly.
enough of our listeners
That's
do
what
go to our church, though. So
I'm like,
I don't really know.
Carol ain't listening to no one.
I don't. And half the time, I'm singing.
I mean, to be
So
fair,
yeah, I fast forward to the
As well.
singing and get straight to the sermon.
that is why I miss a lot of our announcements and have no idea what's going on at church.
Listen, it's too long.
I listen to the sermon.
The fact that we're an hour in and the sermon hasn't started is too much for me.
Wow.
So wait, being with your particular religion, do you feel like you are accepted more than maybe a more like Southern Baptist or, you know?
Well, yeah. So overall, yes, but like I guess like the UCC is kind of set up where it's like all the local churches have their own autonomy, right? So if you go to one UCC church over here and one over here, like this one might be like, yeah, of course, we have, you know, gay pastor and, you know, queer folk, whatever. This other church is like, y'all could come, but don't be telling nobody or whatever else, right? So it's like
Mhm.
any local church can decide for themselves, you know, where
Okay.
they want to be. But as a whole, as a group, you know, we're it is a lot more like, you know, I guess we offer possibilities, you know, how to be like anti-racist and like, you know, LGBTQ friendly and eco-justice is another major one that we do, right?
Mhm.
So we have like a lot, you know, curricula and like other kind of like actually we have an office in DC. I haven't been to that one yet. I gotta come visit y'all.
Yeah.
But, like,
Yes, come.
Yeah, so it's like a you know, near the political center, right? So we have like a lot of folk who are doing some like faith-based advocacy, like anti-abortion. Our
Yeah.
president went to DC as soon as Roe versus Wade got turned over. Like he was in DC like the very next day
Mhm.
out here, like just trying to like calling for
Where
these
was he
leaders, you know,
January
to like
6th?
quit tripping. He
Stop
was
it.
not there.
Okay, perfect.
I'll give you that. He was definitely not there.
That's cool
Yeah.
though. I feel like
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
hear enough about like democracy or not democracy, but like democratic belief in church. I feel like church is always used as like core values,
yeah.
conservative values,
Yeah.
traditional family
Mhm. For
values.
sure.
It's not ever like looked at like democratic churchgoers are like not
Right.
a sect
Yeah.
of like a political pocket,
That-
which is weird.
Yeah.
Because it
That's a whole
definitely
other
exists.
conversation, but there's definitely been this movement within the conservative side to grab the narrative
Of course.
and then, you know, twist the
Mhm.
narrative. Because there were a lot of people who were on the conservative side that did not agree with like a lot of the abortion stuff. But it was one of these things of
Right.
twisting it so that it's their point of view that works and that helps build this country up and gets us the money we need to do X, Y. Yeah, it's a thing.
Which is the
It's-
traditional way that we
Exactly.
know religion to be weaponized, right? But it's
Yeah,
so
for
interesting
sure.
now that we
Yeah.
have it's so much more broad, and there are believers that do not at all co-sign with that, but we
Right.
don't mobilize in the same way through religion as they do.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's off topic.
Did
I'm
you
sorry.
did you grow up in this religion?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So go ahead.
Immediately no.
Yeah, no, it's for real. Cause like I didn't even know that gayness was a thing until I was 19.
Oh,
And I actually remember the phone call. Sai was in Tuskegee.
Oh,
Went up been on the
yeah.
call, like, yo. And I was like, Sai, guess what? You know, it's kind of
Yeah,
wild. So like
We both disclosed to each other first, I think, right?
that same day.
Yeah, that same day. Yes,
Wow.
yeah.
And I was like, I was
First
so
person.
scared. And I told Saya, and then before we hung up, she was like, oh, by the way, Me too. I was like, what, nigga? Like, you ain't leave with that?
That,
Like,
by the way, you're good
wait,
for
hold
burying
on.
a lead,
But
man.
wait, hold on. Can we back up? Did you disclose that you were trans, or did you at first say that you were?
Oh no, in my lesbitarian days. That's
Yes.
Mhm.
Many a days.
Yeah.
We had together. Many a days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just never a label that worked for me, but now I know why. Obviously, because like lesbian means that, you know, you're a woman who's attracted to women.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I always struggle with labels. So when Saya, you know, because we were like in East Lansing, which you've already heard some of Saya's stories, I'm sure.
Mhm.
It wasn't a whole bunch
Tons.
of us. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here goes Saya in Tuskegee, like blackety black town, like, you know, she actually introduced me to like studs and femmes. I'm like, yo, that's what's up. And I used to call myself a STEM because like, again, now it makes a lot more sense. But
Right,
before I was like,
right.
well, you know, I'm not like a femme, but like stud seems a little bit more than what I'm squishy, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not a stud, you know, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which
so I
is
used to call
weird
myself a
because you
STEM.
remember in high school, you were wearing bigger pants to the point where I didn't even know that you were pregnant because it was like
Sure didn't know.
Aaliyah type era at that time.
okay,
so
okay.
like
Yeah.
the bigger look
Extra
was
big
in.
cargos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Come on, long
I
white
was like,
tee.
oh,
That's what I was rocking.
Literally, this
Yeah.
might have been right before graduation, right?
Yeah, she was 4 weeks old at graduation.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
You were
So-
I remember at
Gee, man.
graduation, I'm just like, it's so many layers, but like,
Woo,
even just
yes.
like the fact that, you know, so I'm gonna back up. I was still living in South Africa when Aaliyah came out. And I remember seeing the cover. I was like, I couldn't even told you why, but like just the fact that women could dress like this, I was like,
Yeah.
yo,
Mm.
Yep.
that's my
Nope.
shit right there. You know what I'm saying? So like, I used to like borrow my
TLC was
brother's
mine, so I
clothes
get
and
it.
like, yeah. See, I didn't even know
Yeah.
about TLC at the time. Like, we didn't get that, I guess, where we were. But like, and so we come to East Lansing, you know, halfway through my freshman year, meet Saya, and I'm like, Aaliyah all day. You know what I'm saying? Then I learned about, you know, TLC. I'm like, yo, like, this is a thing. Still had no idea that like women could be attracted to women or men could be attracted to men or even trans. Like that wasn't even on the radar at all at that
Right.
point.
Mhm.
So I remember like when I was 19, kind of coming across, like, I don't remember what it was. I ended up at the library, like in the HQ section of the books where like all the queer stuff was apparently. And that's how like meaningful it was. Like I would just be in the stacks and just like reading like lesbian comics. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like there's like a whole culture here that didn't even know this was a possibility, you know?
Wow. That's so
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
Saya, you
So-
did have the Aaliyah look when I first met you.
You did with the long straight hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, so I wouldn't know.
So pressed.
Yeah.
You did. Your surprise was always like
Laid.
perfect. Jealous.
I aspire.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
your volume. So when did
Yeah.
you realize that you didn't identify as a lesbian, but you were trans?
I was in my 30s. I was in seminary.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
wow.
I was post-seminary. I was actually serving a church that, again, same thing,
Ooh.
you know, I actually was going to, I was doing like a pre-doctoral year at the school I was going to, and I found the word genderqueer, and like cameras spun around me, like the angels started singing, like lights shone on me. I'm like,
Aw.
what is, you know, because I remember like when my daughter, like, you know, was younger, there's like a very vivid moment, you know, where I was like in my early 20s, whatever, my daughter, like my mattress was on the ground, like there's a lot of like stuff, you know, like just broke and young and parenting, whatever else, right?
Mhm.
I remember thinking, I don't think I'm a man. Like, you know what? I'm gonna deal with this question after she's graduated from high school. And I tucked that bitch away. Like I just tucked it way away.
Mm.
So a couple years before she actually graduated high school, I find this word genderqueer. And I was like, what? So I started like, you know, what is this? You know, I was like, that's why I couldn't find myself, you know, like I didn't feel like I was a man. So I was like questioning still, but I knew for sure like woman wasn't right for me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so like, I mean, I used to resist labels all the time until I found that one in others. I was like, oh, it wasn't that I hated labels. I just didn't have any that actually felt like
Suited
they fit for me,
you.
you know?
Right.
Yeah. So
Did-
gender queer made sense. I was like, all right, shit. Yeah, that's more me, where it's like, you know, like STEM, you know,
Yeah.
like before I even knew.
Right. You're creating what you
Oh,
can
yeah.
out of what
Can we
you-
define genderqueer? Because I don't know if I've heard that before.
For me, yeah. For me, it's like this idea that, I mean, I feel like I kind of transcend gender, right? Like I actually don't think of myself as a gender person.
Mhm.
I only remember gender because someone has read me as a gender.
Okay.
So it's almost always for someone else what my gender is. You know, for me, I'm just like,
I'm me.
yeah. You know, it's like,
That's right.
and I actually found myself wondering, like, if we lived in a culture that didn't force people into gender roles based on their genitalia at birth,
Mhm.
I wonder how that would be different. You know what I'm saying? Because like, I don't know.
So interesting. I'm so intrigued by this. I was having a similar conversation, actually spurred by Love is Blind, when the conversation, sorry, I don't know if you're here yet.
That's fine.
There's a couple, Raven and SK, and they're having a conversation.
Oh my gosh, I love them so much. Okay, I'm sorry.
Are you a Love is Blind fan?
I'm glad that they're still together.
I knew we would get along.
Okay. It was a conversation that they were having about names. And Raven was like, you said that you are who you are because of your name. And I'm telling you that I am who I am. If I was never named Raven, I would still be who I am today. I would still act this way. I would still like what I like, and I would still be who I am. And for SK, it was completely inverted. I could never be who I am if I didn't hold this name.
Wow.
And it's so interesting how culturally, like what our names are. For us, it's kind of random. It's whatever your mom decided was going to be good. It flows together. I like the initials. It fits in the family scheme, like whatever that is.
Half my name, half your name.
Right. But if you're like for Nigerian or Ghanaian, I just got that. if you're it is Ghanaian. I don't know about like Nigerian, but I think SK is Nigerian. So much of your name is predicated on things that have occurred, like what the day of the week that you're born, your family surname, things of that nature, and how that lens can completely change who you find your identity to be is very interesting to me. And all of this conversation has really been very interesting to me from the standpoint of that you knew before you knew how to communicate. Like the nuanced differences from what you were experiencing in the world around you. And I love that. I love hearing about that, because I feel like in these conversations about like what to educate our children, they're too young and you don't want to put these ideas in their head. It's so not about that, because you're only giving them the tools to communicate themselves to you.
That was the same thing. No, sorry, real quick. I think not only based on gender, but sexuality, because people mentioned earlier attraction to women, not really taking it beyond that, but some people, not everyone, know pretty early, I am feeling this type of way with regards to same sex, opposite sex, whatever the case may be. May not have, like, I've seen mommy and daddy in a relationship. I know what they do, but I don't know what that means with regards to me and what I am seeing that I like. And then not even getting to, finally getting to the point of being like, oh, now I know that I do, but now I've also learned that I shouldn't. There's like that. And none of that has anything to do with what I was exposed to or who else I had talked to. It was just
you discovering yourself.
Yeah, within your own self, you're knowing these things, and it's not required for anyone else to tell us anything other than when I finally find the words to communicate this with you, I will. But sometimes it takes having like the tools and the knowledge of these things to then say, what I've always known, you can now know too. Because I now know how to explain it. And I know I've often talked about how I don't like how it can be that the language follows whatever something is, but sometimes it needs to be the thing following the language following the thing. Because it just, a lot of times I think people just need things to be very black and white. So I can explain this to you so you understand. But the box of the definition does not need to remain. It's just is like, I'm helping you understand what I already know about myself. So even when you mentioned that.
With a box cutter, flatten all of them bitches.
I love that.
When people mentioned earlier that you felt like there is no need for the gender, I'm just doing this for other people, that resonated with who I know of you as well. Right? I've known you for 20 plus years, but I've often known you for myself as Phiwa. The gender is to help others understand maybe who I am talking to, but it's not a description of who you have ever been. So for you to finally find that knowledge and be like, I'm okay with that. It's so interesting because you're watching as a friend for 20 years and being like, I know this about this person. Dude, but they don't. Like, it took her some time. Let me just say right now, my bad. I our 20 years has been, I love you,
We'll
I
keep
respect you.
practicing.
And so I'm moving forward and trying to transition to they and him, because when we talk, we do not often talk about gender. So to then have to
But you also
explain.
talk to me in the second person, not the third person. So there's also that feature, right?
So I apologize in advance if anyone is feeling like I am trying to continually do these things. No, it is just where I have been, and when I've needed to utilize these terms has not switched
Yeah.
over. So I'm trying
You're
my
talking
best
about
to.
past a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it.
So
Mhm.
nonetheless, it's interesting just to know somebody and know where they are, but it kind of hurts that they don't know what you see. And I've always seen that in you. So then for you to say, I didn't have the language, but now this is where I'm at and I'm okay with it. I'm just doing whatever else everybody else needs. It's good to see. It's good to see a whole person who you already knew them to be. But, you know, when they say it and you're like, oh, yeah, that's it. That's exactly what that is. And so I'm glad. I hate that I didn't recognize it, but I am glad that you have found it, because I think that's what a lot of people are looking for, right? To be able to
We
have
couldn't
that.
have, right? That's it too. Sometimes, you know, I'm like, I wonder what my family knew. Like, some of these kids, like, they've been known, you know what I'm saying? That like their parents are able to support them. And again, having the language, the tools, like society has shifted from when we were kids, right? Many moons ago. But like, I try not to even entertain that line of thought, because like there's really nothing that it can't serve me, right? In any way. But like, there are definitely parts of me that are like, hey, they probably had signs. Like, this should not have been a surprise, you know, I finally came out, right? But also, right, like the tradition, you know, the religious tradition and cultural tradition, you know, we're immigrants in this new country, you know, like even just the fact that, you know, I am queer, like ×2, you know, now like a decade apart, I guess, kind of like how I came out to my family. But like this idea that are like, oh, you're so Americanized, like, yeah, nigga, like,
welcome.
Yes.
Also,
like,
no, go ahead, finish.
I was say like it's an accusation, like, oh, you're Americanized, like, or like this idea that queerness is white. Like, no, Black folk have been queer since the beginning of time. You know what I'm saying? Like, and but like whiteness actually gave us the intolerance of our various expressions.
Wow,
of
the one time
self,
whiteness
religion,
was
and
a positive thing.
I hate you. That is interesting though, because even when I think about like I think when I was young and I like was learning about what it is to be like gay or queer, and I thought, not that I only thought that it was white people by any means, but I think I remember the realization that it wasn't new. And being like, oh, like people have been gay like for centuries. And I automatically always thought about like the Romans and the Greeks. I never thought about like the kingdoms in Africa where that was also taking place. Like, it never occurred to me.
And even so, like recently, so Dwayne Wade had to defend his daughter Zaya from his ex-wife, and how she was saying that he was profiting off of her being trans and all these things. So I bring that up to say, like, as a parent, you're also a parent. I'm a parent as well. If you could give advice to a parent of a child that is communicating that they are trans, like what would you say, or like what do you wish you had heard? And again, I don't know.
Believe them.
Okay. And even
believe them for starters. Yeah.
Okay. And then also like there's a lot of controversy against like around them transitioning at a young age and what that means and all those things. So I don't know if you have any advice for parents or.
Which is weird because 18 being the adult is an arbitrary number, but go ahead. Sorry.
And that's the thing, actually. So as kids, the benefit of believing them the first time around, right, is then make sure you have like your own therapist, which if you're having a human experience, I think everybody should have therapy.
Come on, say it again.
I'm a therapy evangelist, you know.
Resonating thing.
I just have to come out as letting people know that I've seen a therapist. Like that was like very hard with like Black folk having to come out and be like, oh, by the way, I'm seeing a therapist. Like, it took me years before I even admitted that out loud to people. But anyway,
that's right.
But like medically, you know, people who are like under 18, they actually are just postponing puberty. So if it's a child, you know, who was assigned male at birth, whatever, right? So they just basically kind of put hormone blockers, so that way their voices don't drop, Adam's apples don't form, you know, like they don't, you know, kind of like their bodies are not masculinized, right? If they, you know, if they know themselves to be a woman, for example, right? So it just kind of pauses that. So it's not even anything permanent. So if, you know, at age 5 or whatever, and at 10 they start like these hormone blockers, and then they find out at 18 like, oh no, I was wrong. Now you're just like a late bloomer,
Like, no
right?
harm
They can just
done.
like unblock
Right.
them. Right. The flip side though is if you don't block it, well, now you got to go get top surgery. You got to maybe get bottom surgery if that's your thing. You got to get hormone. So it's like you
and all the unlearning
as-
that comes with that.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
man.
And it's like if you even get to adulthood, right? The invisibilizing of like, I know who I am, but everyone around me is telling me this is not me.
Yeah.
And just the decades of having to unravel that.
That's real.
All you got to do is just believe your child, love your child, support your child. Like, are we really truly so invested in someone's private genitalia, which not even that we're walking around with our business hanging out anyway, right? So we make assumptions about what is between someone's legs and how they present in the world.
Yeah.
And how that even has anything to do with who they are as a person.
Right.
Are you respectful? Are you kind? Are you loving? Are you positively contributing to society? Do you have, you know what I'm saying? Like, but having a penis between your legs somehow
disqualifies all of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Or gives me agency over
controlling it, telling you who you are, how you
That's
should do
so
things,
true.
to the point where how it interacts with me is how I'm going to treat you. So if I feel violated with men, it can be I feel like I am entitled to harm you or kill you. Right? Like that's the level. It's not like it's just like a little bit or here and there. It is full blown. I can take you out because of the way in which I felt disrespected because you have something I didn't ask for or want to be a part of.
Yeah. That's the other thing about like this situation with Dwayne Wade and his ex-wife, because would this be a lawsuit if Zaya was a cisgendered woman and was modeling? Like, no. Is this a lawsuit that you have that's like you're profiting over our daughter? Like, if
I
it's
think
not,
the ex-wife is also just trying to stop her changing her name.
But how is that hurting D Wade?
No, I don't know. I'm just saying that what the lawsuit was making Zaya wait until she's 18 to change her name.
Oh, it was her name.
Yeah, I don't even remember if it was anything to do with a gender reassignment surgery or anything like that. I just kept hearing her name, which is also not permanent. I can change my name at any point,
and
whether I'm
times.
Or have a nickname.
Whether I'm trans or not, I can change my name. So it's also weird that this is the hill you're dying on.
Yeah, and it was weird because I think how my algorithm is based, like usually it's like very progressive. It's not a lot of like shitty stuff to say the least.
Shade Room? Okay.
I followed them a long time ago. But when I do, but they're less messy than Shade Room, which is not saying a lot, but they are less messy. I mean, I want to say informed, but less pejoratively. So when I was like reading the comments of this, a lot of the comments, and I guess I was shocked that like a lot of the comments were like, a mother knows best. And like that's her protecting her baby, and I was just like, wow, like I haven't like seen. Usually, I'm like prepared for the mess, and I'm seeing like really, like I was expecting to see like a lot more positivity around it.
I would expect the backlash if it was a surgery. Changing someone's name is so easy
First of all,
to do and to reverse and change back. Even if Zaya at 21 is like, I don't want to be Zaya anymore. I want to be Zorro instead. Like this is
the artist formerly known as
Prince. Like, why are we arguing about this child's name?
How we've gone from Little Bow Wow to Bow Wow to Shad Moss. Like, who are you?
Okay.
Who are like?
I don't know if I use that as an example.
I'm just saying, like, I say all that to say,
Little Bow Wow.
I feel like in general, people put a black and white to a situation where a lot of it is very gray. We are very complex creatures, regardless of what gender you identify as or what sexual preference you have. We're just too complex to put a very linear system on things.
Well, that and you're asserting your biases on me and calling it protection.
Precisely
wow.
that.
Yeah. That's a bar.
It's like Christian folk in this country who are like, oh, freedom of religion. Let a Muslim pull out their prayer mat and pray in public. Look here.
Can I tell you?
We don't actually mean, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's like we want our religious freedom, whoever that is,
but
right?
Not somebody else's.
And I don't want to see yours. So call it something else. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't call it religious freedom. Just call it like we're only going to do Christian stuff and that's it.
Yeah,
right?
just be honest about
in
it.
a similar way, I feel like, you know, when it comes to gender or even sexuality, it's very like, oh, this isn't about freedom of who you are. Like, you know, my favorite is, you know, like the Bible says this about marriage. Like, which example of marriage in the Bible do you want to use? Because there's so many.
Well,
Or even the fact that when you talk about, you know, men having penetrative sex with men, it wasn't about don't fuck each other. It was about don't violence one another. Don't, or that earlier in the Bible too, right? But then a little later too is really about, you know, because women were property, so don't lie down with a man like you would a woman. So, but that's exactly what we're doing. How many cis men are out here violencing other people, whether or not it's a man or a woman, whomever else, right? So like that's what the Bible talks about. But we want to keep picking and choosing, you know, like service level, you know, when did Adam and Eve get married? But we keep using Adam and Eve as like,
Facts.
we gotta be married, no, one man and a woman.
That's such a good question. That's such a good question.
Come on.
Wow. I didn't even
Wait,
thought
I
about
need to
that.
turn your side eye into a gift because I need, it's had so many
Yes.
applications in my life.
Yes, not to populating the whole world and they out here not
whole
married.
world. Wow.
Look here.
The way I never realized that.
Wait, so they weren't married for real?
Who's gonna do
It
it?
doesn't
sis?
say it.
God himself?
Who's gonna check me, boo?
My thing is, if it were that important, it probably would have been written. You know what I'm saying? So like,
You not lying.
these are all social constructs.
Wow.
How we did gender, even across different cultures, different indigenous cultures on different lands. You know what I'm saying? Before white people showed up, there was no man role because
What is that?
What does that
Everybody
mean?
was out here getting
Yeah.
Don't get me started on that. Okay.
exactly
Right. That's the conversation for.
Yes.
I have a did your how you approach dating changed when you well, you said you had a hard time with labels, but at the time when you identified as a lesbian versus as a trans person, did how you approach dating change?
Yeah. So this is actually an active conversation. You know, I keep avoiding with my therapist. I bring it up, then I'm like, nah, I really want to talk about it.
Never right now,
you know,
never now.
but it's real. Like, as a masculine woman, so I thought woman,
Okay.
I feel like there were definitely some freedoms, you know, to be like, I mean, I used to be like the flavor of the month, you know what I'm saying? Like, sorry, you see at 505, you know what I'm saying? We'd be like dancing, like holding it down, back in the juvie days, you know, like back the thing up. So it was a whole bunch of things being backed up. And so like all sorts of, you know what I'm saying? We could, like, I could pull as a woman back in the day, right?
Okay.
However, right, so having been socialized as a woman and then now, you know, having like these, you know, masculine hormones coursing through my body, I want to be sure that when I show up, I'm not participating in the kind of harm that cis men have enacted against me personally and many others, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like, you know, I'm already shy, if I'm being truthfully honest with myself, right? Like I'm shyer, but then now I'm just like, I also overthink. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like how much of this is like, okay, no, it's appropriate to kind of like try to holler at somebody, or if it's like, don't be so, you know, don't be like a caveman, right? So it's like, I find myself in this tension of like, you know, not being like kind of problematically masculine. But the wildest thing though, is what I realized that people actually have already written a script for me as a masculine Black person where they actually expect me to be more aggressive than I probably ever will be in my life, you know? And so it's like, they expect me to like, no, just like, nah, I'm not a caveman, you know, like, so like some of the problematic elements of like, you know, Black masculinity have actually been imposed upon me. And like, oh, well, you're not a nigga anyway. I'm like, wait, what? Because I'm not gonna like
disrespectful.
You can't be disrespectful.
Yeah, like because I choose not to like speak to you as though you're like not a whole human, you know, like
yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
'Cause I just watched that play out not in real life because it was on TV, but it was a reality show, so somebody's real life. But it was like sorry, I am part of Bachelor Nation secretly and ashamedly, so I don't talk about it a
This
lot.
is not a secret.
Okay, but it was for our viewers. I was watching an episode of Bachelor in Paradise, and there was this. I'm liking this season a lot more because there's a lot more Black love on it because there have been Black protagonists in the recent Bachelor series, so there have been more Black cast members. So there's a lot of like Black love happening on
These are
Bachelor in
all
Paradise.
previous
contestants. Yeah.
Okay.
So this
Nice.
one couple was like, they had like gotten to know each other and they were like dating, and they just seemed like a really great match together. And so like everyone's like rooting for them. Some guy comes down on the beach and he wants to take the girl out on a date. And so they're like talking, he asked her on a date, and then she goes back to the guy that she was originally dating, and she was like, okay, so he asked me on this date, but I wanted to know like what your thoughts are about it. And so his approach was to not be a caveman, essentially, and be like, no, you're not going on this date. I thought you and I had something and like we wanted to grow together. Right. And instead he's like, you know, I really like you and I really want this to continue, but I don't want you to have doubts. I don't want you to like me because you haven't experienced other things. I want you to go on this date, like me, and then come back to me because you like me, not because I told you no.
Right.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, if you really liked me, you would tell me not to go on this date, and you would just tell me that this is not an option and I'm not allowed to go. So you must not like me that much. And I was just
I've experienced this. I've experienced that firsthand. Like multiple times dating.
I thought you handled that so well.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. And she just I was like, wow, you're young and dumb. And now I don't like you. Crazy.
But I think, so it's happened to me multiple times. And I think the reality of that situation is where, twofold. I think that, as people were saying earlier, there are these expectations on men where they have to be, or masculine of center, or women, where we have to be a certain way in order to express love or relationship or how we move in this world. So not only is it their expectation of men and have been groomed, I guess, of sort, it seems
the patriarchy.
The patriarchy has groomed them to seriously have to react in these ways. And if they are not, then they are viewed as being less manly or reconsidered uninterested or unable to show up the way I need you to show up, which it has nothing to do with me. That has everything to do with your expectation of me and the rest of the way people have expected us to move. And there's no room. I was reading that article. I think I shared you guys with, there was a lesbian woman who went out in the world and presented herself as a man so that others, she could see male culture. And her
the other half lived,
right. And she said one of the things that it took her a while to navigate was there's only one type of language really to talk with men, whereas women get a voice that varies. Men have to kind of be like this way. And if not, other men will chastise you for being that way and being like, that's because they're not allowed to be in the spectrum that women are allowed to be in as far as who they are. So I don't know. I think it's unfortunate, but I think it happens in a lot of places. I don't know if women also get this, but I definitely know men are limited. And I don't know, my assumption would be that you have had to navigate that as well. When people are expecting you to be a man, the expectation is
interesting that expectation is to remove my autonomy.
Yeah.
Like that is crazy to me.
Yep. But because there's the box says man. So we're going to keep you in that. It has to be in order to be masculine.
I just don't like this us defending men thing. So weird.
It's off brand, for sure. It's definitely off brand.
No, but if we were to actually recategorize even those who tend to enact the most violence, like cis men are most often than not the
Can we also
most
put white
violent,
on there? But sorry, go ahead.
White Christian men are the most violent demographic ever.
Yeah.
And then you could take down, one label at a time, and like that's still kind of like, as far as violence goes,
Republican.
right?
Where's our hats?
Present January 6th.
Okay, sorry. Yes, continue your point.
Well, I'm gonna add like another layer to this, right? So I was very surprised actually. Starting testosterone and like just some of the internal shifts that happened that
I was gonna ask, but I didn't know if I was allowed to. Okay.
Usually probably not, but because we're here, like, let's go.
Fair.
Let's go.
Like I've been surprised. Like there's some like things feel a lot more urgent internally, and like little things that like set me off. I remember the first time. Okay, so it's like a few weeks into testosterone, and I was in my car on the freeway about to overtake this car, and like this is probably no, I'm gonna share it. It's fine. It's whatever. I'm overtaking. I remember exactly where I was, like on the corner of this or around a curve. This car over here on the right. I see the angle of this person. It's just like Black woman, I'm assuming, freshly haircutted. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I was just this angle of a person with a fresh cut. Like I was very surprised that like I was feeling activated, which I've never, visually been like just out of nothing, kind of been like activated so intensely.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, holy wow. And so like just
holy wow.
Wow.
I feel like right then the gift of kind of like going through this like masculine puberty in my 30s, having been socialized as a woman.
Oh, okay.
This is a lot.
I approached some of those like the urgency, the intensity of like, like I guess like not saying I understand the caveman behaviors, right? But like I feel like if we know that this is true for folk who have testosterone in their bodies, why are we not then helping teach these folk basically how not to rape women, how not to be violent, how not to like beat on your chest, instead of always trying to teach like women how not to get raped,
right?
Which obviously is not working, right? But I will say like having experienced that and like another layer of surprise is like rejection feels way different with testosterone in my body than
can
it
you
is
explain? Yeah, what does that mean?
I struggle so hard to even make sense of, but it's like I feel like back in my lesbitarian days, I probably would have shot way more shots because like, okay, cool, someone said no, all right, bet, we can still chill, it's whatever, right? And we'll move on. But it felt a lot more dire, like a no, like take me now, Lord. Like it just felt,
oh no,
but so much more intense. Yeah,
but that also you saying that makes sense of why why men respond so violently when rejection happens. If the response feels more like a
or like PTSD.
Defendant men.
I mean, you're right. I mean, but now that I can be swayed when I'm persuaded a little bit.
Yay, Carol.
But not to excuse it.
Now I hate it. Now I hate it. But
violence is more understandable.
Yeah, no, I mean it's not understandable, but like the way that you're explaining it to us, I'm like, oh, like it. If it feels like a violent reaction to you,
the response.
They're just trying to match our energy.
The response that has been taught. Let's also get into that.
Right,
like the response that has been taught, right, absolutely. Is instead of you dealing with it, lash out. Like when you feel these things, lash out. We have not spent any time saying when you feel these things.
Yeah,
that's the time when you need to go. Maybe I don't know, by yourself.
Yeah,
really talk to somebody.
Take a walk.
Right,
do something nonviolent.
Right. Yeah,
I think that's kind of like the gift, right, of queerness, or people who've kind of experienced both, especially with transphobe, right? To say, I have heard zero people talk about it in that way. And I wonder, what if we're like, hey, look, this thing is going to make me feel like you're dying. Teach that response because I had that in my body, but I knew not to act out in a particular way because I was socialized as a woman, right? So I feel like a lot of even what it means to be a man, right, is constructed, which brings us back to gender is a construct, right?
Yeah.
But you can't say that for other people because in that now you can't argue for trans folk just living their lives and existing, right? So it's like we literally construct what it means to be a man, and we can change that construction to be less violent.
Yeah,
and that helps all of us.
That's a bar.
People are not to that violence.
Yeah, but I'm also like, this is what's so annoying because as a woman, we're taught how to react to these things. But men are not taught how to like control those feelings.
Exactly.
But it comes from that caveman mentality, right? That this is, their initial reaction is this, and you can't fight the initial reaction. So this is how you respond to it rather than telling them how to respond to that reaction.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is annoying.
Yeah. It's so annoying.
And emotional labor.
Yes. I'm doing enough. No, thank you. Don't sign me up for any of that.
That makes me think about so many things.
Like, let them have their feelings. It's not my favorite thing too.
Yeah, but like by yourself. Like don't take your feelings out on me. Like that's what's so aggravating.
Yeah, it is.
No, that's real.
Not as all being are bad.
I am, but I'm like a little pissed. I don't know. I feel upside down a little bit because I'm like
not a Stranger Thing.
I am. I feel like I'm in the upside down.
I just imagine that emoji that's doing the handstand. Sorry, go ahead.
because it's okay. So it makes me think of this, and maybe this is the wrong context. I don't know. I'm sure. I know y'all will tell me. It's not. I'm sure. I know y'all will tell me. It's like when, like, okay. So as we're talking about teach men how to respond, like as a woman, me personally, when I am like I said earlier, that I only have one good week out of the month. Like truly, the week before, the week during, the week after, it's probably in your best interest. Like in some,
So only when you're ovulating.
maybe, yeah. So it's as you mentioned, like we're taught to behave a certain way, but there's some days I'm like, nah, everybody is getting the smoke. Everybody, you talk to me crazy, you get in the smoke. If you look at me crazy, you get in the smoke. And it's like, are we expected to also learn how to
Deal with
shift
your
that
emotions?
off?
Not F
Yes.
that. Men, listen.
Thank you, friend. I knew I had a real one.
No, I'm just tired of
Is
us
it even
always
only
having
men
to
that
do
are
it.
looking at you while they're talking
No,
to you?
I'm just saying in
Wow.
general, like just in, I'm not discriminating against whatever you identify as. If I'm in that space and I'm in a
Sis, you can't have 3 out of the 4 weeks of a month. You can have 1.
yeah, but I'm not
That's
saying
all
that
she
I'm
got.
No, she's saying
saying the opposite.
she's saying
Yeah.
that she has one
She's
good
saying
good week out of the
out
month.
of 4.
I heard that.
Thank you.
What I'm saying is
But
she
she
needs
said
to
the
exchange
Exactly.
that
the
and-
opposite. Yes, it'd be
No,
three
why?
good
See, thank you, friend.
Wait,
Thank you.
here's my
Set
thing.
it off.
Because if
How
it's the
many-
majority,
how
it's
many
just your
men are having this
personality.
conversation?
I need my straight backs. Set
What'd
it
you
off.
say, Piwa?
That's why.
Or no, I'm saying like how many men are having this conversation?
None
how
of
many
them.
white women
No.
are having this
None of them.
conversation, right?
Oh, well.
And I'm hearing
I
yours
almost
more
told
like
off
as
a
a
Karen
black
today in
woman
the
saying
gym.
these words. Oh, see, look, like you get to be mad. You have the
I
same
agree.
angry
We get to be
emotions as
mad.
men folk.
And if you want to
As
be
white
mad
women.
3 weeks out the month, then you be mad.
Be mad.
I'm just saying
And you
that.
that's information.
Okay,
She
Thank you for
already been doing
validating
it.
Okay,
me.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate
You're
you.
welcome.
I'm not trying
friend.
to invalidate you. I'm just saying that if it's 3 out of the, if it's the majority, it might just be your personality, sis.
Nah.
It may not be a reaction. That's
That
what
too.
I'm trying to say.
That too. I'm the fiery one of the group. Mhm. I think everybody knows it.
You're not though. You
You're
can't.
such a big.
I am a
big
softie,
pushover.
but don't cross me or my people.
So who's the
and then
fiery one? I'm curious now.
It depends on the day.
You got quiet.
It's definitely.
Nobody went mad at all. Everybody's like,
Yeah, I
It's
wanted him
definitely
to
not
say
me.
it.
Yeah, I think it depends on the who it is.
Yeah,
and
what
It's the
is.
topic. If you give me topics, I can answer like,
I feel like you're more fiery out of all of us.
I'm just protective.
Me?
That's it.
Yeah,
oh,
You
I
are.
kind of feel honored by that.
you are. Because I
Good.
also feel like you're. No offense. I feel like you're the smartest. So I feel like your
Agreed.
fiery is
I don't
like
take that as
around your
offense.
intelligence.
all the offense. Oh, no, joking.
I feel offended.
Every
Why?
time we do the word of the week, I'm like, oh.
Not the word of the
I
week.
mean, come on now.
It is.
No, I just have like a high injustice, like a low injustice tolerance, which I just learned was an ADHD thing.
You have a lot of.
Interesting.
Okay, great.
Oh,
We can talk about this later.
Yeah.
I'd love to know what they are.
No, I just feel like you're the first one to like be like no nonsense.
Oh.
But I feel like it
Pop
tracks
off, sis,
based on
pop
who your
off.
daddy is.
I was just about to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's not topical. It's just broad.
Yeah,
No, I feel like no one is effing with you.
at all.
I feel like
But
that's
that's
90% of
just
the time.
off, like you said, GP. Like,
Yeah.
who your
Yeah,
daddy
because that's
is.
true. I used to hold that as a badge too. Because when I was
No, I
young,
love that
people would be
about
like,
you.
"Do you know how to-" I'm like, if I ever get into a fight, I might lose. I don't know, but no one ever tries me because I just
Same. I
Line
cannot
before I
fight,
get
but
there.
same.
Right.
yeah, no
That's
one really
how I
crosses
made it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, facts.
Okay, so back to the disclosure really
Yes.
quickly.
Sorry, that was a wild tangent.
I know you in particular, your experience, you disclose very off the bat. Like that's one of the first things you disclose. Do you ever feel like based on if the relationship's going to become sexual, if that is like a more pertinent conversation versus if it's like we're just friends or I'm not seeing you as someone that I would like to progress our relationship sexually with or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's especially important sexually because like body parts, right? Like there's
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
body parts that are enjoyable for some and maybe not for others, or how you engage bodies with one another and, any, prosthetics and or equipment, paraphernalia, toy, and they're not toys. You don't play with that stuff. Take that stuff seriously.
mean-
But like,
Playtime is
Depends on
playtime.
what you mean by
Always down for the time in the sandbox.
I love games where there's no loser.
Oh, that's
Okay.
good.
I like
That's what's
that.
up.
That's good.
That's what's up. Yeah, I get again. So part of what earlier, right? I asked, when cisgender folk disclose. Overall, I feel like if we just normalized, if some people have to disclose, let everybody disclose, right?
Yeah.
The same way I use the language of cisgender. If we're only ever naming that which is different,
Mm-hmm.
we'll always be different, and we're
Yeah.
always going to be somehow a threat
That's real.
to society, right? But if everybody's disclosing, then that's just what we do, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like now making it like, oh, the onus is on the oppressed,
Right.
Yeah, that's so true.
and not on, say how Black people can't solve racism, right?
Mhm.
We've all got work to do, and some of us that's undoing those tapes that we've heard all our lives, and for others it's like quit oppressing people, right?
Yeah.
But like, so I think all of us, right, if we took on the responsibility for disclosure, then it would look very different, right? Then it won't be as dangerous for us to,
Yeah,
or even
for
just the
sure.
weight of having to do the calculations of when to disclose, how to disclose, if to disclose. Like, some days I'd be getting tired. I'm like, you know what? I'm not even gonna. It's fine. I'm gonna just go on ahead and be happy in my little hermit mode. It just feels like a lot
Work.
to figure out. Like,
Yeah.
what might you do or say? I will also say though that I have the privileges of being able to kind of curate who I have around me, and
That's
so
real.
Doesn't everybody?
it hasn't. No, I don't think so.
That's also real.
Oh,
Okay, so can you explain then?
please.
Like the pandemic, right? I had the privilege of being able to stay at home and still work and not lose any income.
Okay.
There are
Yeah.
many others who had to be out and about, right? So I
Right.
feel like, especially in service roles, you don't get to pick who's around
Right.
you.
Okay.
Right.
Fair.
And most of the time, to keep your livelihood, you just got to shut the fuck up and take it,
Yeah.
and not even have your employer protect or anything else, right? So I feel like, and that's just one of like, several privileges, like, so education and being in the denomination that I'm in, being in the country that I'm in. So like
Having your
all
own
these different
space.
privileges.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. I've been able to kind of curate the people I have around me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't have to maybe wrestle with the same, or at least the weight of that question of disclosure.
That's real.
Like, I went into my job and I didn't have to wonder about what they know or don't know, right? Because
yeah,
it's
that's
upfront,
real.
And I'm at a job that they're actually advocating on my behalf. I don't have to keep reminding people of my pronouns. They're like, my coworkers are like, no, those aren't people's pronouns. Fix it. I only have to fight for myself always, right?
Yeah.
So
That's
not always been
freeing.
true,
Yeah.
right? So in that, having that in my world, right? So I don't always, I guess, have to like wrestle with the weight of the question of disclosure, because I'm in a universe where I'm out and it's not a question. And I've been able to shape my work around, being Black, queer, trans, African, living in America, and like all the otherness that is my life, being able to bring those together. And like, that is my ministry in the world. Right. So I'm only answering that question as me.
Right.
And even a year from now, I would hope that question maybe isn't the same either, right? Because one, that maybe we've moved into a world where disclosure is for everybody, right?
Yeah.
But also, just that, I don't want to have to keep having these same struggles,
Yeah,
whether
for
the
sure.
ones that I personally experience or ones that others do experience that I also want to fight for
sure.
with the privileges and powers that I do have, they're not many, but I feel like, I say this to white people when I do anti-racist work, like, if you're not risking something, don't call yourself an ally, right? Or, while you have the privilege, spend it down. You can't take it with you. So if I'm going to tell people that, right, I like to practice literally what I'm preaching. So I'm working at the denominational setting, in an environment that allows me to say stuff that any other place I would have never been able to say these things. Like, I have access to like the higher ups in this denomination. And I'm like, I'll call bullshit.
Yeah. I think for me, I always like, as a woman that, okay, I'm just going to say how I feel it. As a woman that enjoys penises, right? I would only expect there to be disclosure if you don't have that sexual organ that I'm expecting.
So if they do, you are not.
So how does someone know that that's what you need? Like, how would I know if I approached you?
So I would, through our conversation, I would tell you
leading up to sex.
that I enjoy.
So when do you have that conversation? You know what I mean? Like, so that's
yeah,
I think
that's true.
kind of the question. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's like when you have that with someone that you're planning to have a sexual relationship with, right? That's going to come up at some point.
Yeah.
But if you do not have the organ that I enjoy, I would expect at some point for you to tell me
because you've disclosed
that I enjoy that organ.
Okay. But
Right.
I guess what I'm hearing them say is that something that happens organically, or is it like, hi, my name is Nicole and I like penis? Like, is that how the conversation goes?
I think it's more like how it happens naturally is like,
show me a dick pic. Just kidding.
for Carol, apparently that is like you and a remote for comparison. I think I'll speak for myself. How it happens naturally. It's more just like that flirtatious of like talking dirty or like, oh, like what I want to do to you later, what I'm hoping happens is how it can occur more naturally than your name and then
I'm
the
not gonna
sexual
say,
organ you prefer.
Yeah, like not like I'm in an AA meeting, like, hi, my name is Carol and I love dick. Like that's not how it's gonna come up for sure.
I want to stick there though. Let's stick there for a second, right? Because I think, again, not saying this of you because I don't know you like that, but like,
go ahead.
When you meet someone who you read as a cisgender man, a man, whatever, right? You have, I guess, assumptions that they probably have a penis in their pants and maybe you want to start talking to them, right? And so if it came to that level, again, my hope is that if it was a trans person who maybe has not had or will not have like bottom surgery, then they might be like, oh, by the way, just want to check in, right? And that's where some people will start saying like, oh, it's deception. You didn't tell me because like you weren't able to see that I was trans. You know, I don't 100% pass, right? But there's some people, I mean, like fully bearded, like you would never know, like by any stretch. I'm saying like just beefy trans men, right?
Right.
Or even some trans women. But I guess like with that in mind though, like at what point do you ask that person like, hey, what you got in your pants? Like, should we be developing this thing, right? And I think maybe that's kind of where the disclosure question is.
Yeah, and it does because how we interact sexually is now going to change because of how, at least from my past experiences, right? From what I'm accustomed to. If you do not have that, how we are going to now progress our relationship sexually is going to be different. But it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's going to be different. And so I would be expecting the conversation, not necessarily that I'm against the conversation or I'm against us progressing. I just want to know what that looks like.
But I don't
so how does someone not know that you're a lesbian, for example?
How do I not know?
How does someone not know that you're a lesbian? You know?
Yeah.
You don't.
No, we do. Do we know that you are a lesbian?
Oh.
I mean, if I was walking up to you somewhere.
You don't.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We've had this question too, like when I've asked Saya before, because we live in a cisgender world, right? Where everyone, I would assumes everyone is a cis heterosexual person until you say otherwise, unless you're in a space where I'm expecting everyone in that space to not be that. So I've asked Saya, like we went to Broccoli City this year and I was like, how do you hit on women in a safe way? Because you don't know if they're gay or not. Like you know what I mean? Like, so how do you do that safely and not like coming off as, I don't know, people might take it a wrong way or whatever. Like, how do you approach those situations, assuming that you're in a space where everyone is straight? Right.
This is the reason why there are gay, lesbian, trans spaces, right? Because there's no guarantee that no matter what I do to it as an approach, there's no guarantee that someone is not going to feel some type of way about the way that I approach. I have cultivated it into a space where it is like I'm being very affirming of the person that I see versus outright hitting on someone out of safety reasons and for comfortability for somebody else. Because every person that I am around, I do not automatically assume you want me, nor do I assume that you are gay in any way or a lesbian or any way, shape, or form. So you have to do what's safest, but also I also think respectful, right? Like it's just because you want to be, for me, I want to be respectful of wherever you are on your journey with your sexuality. So if you are into it, then we know how to talk. If you're not, receive the compliment, the affirmation, and say, go about your business, and that's it.
Because
I think that, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. I was just about to ask, like, so in a moment, like, like if a cisgender individual goes into, let's say we go to the gay club or whatever, and it's ladies' night or whatever that's defined as, right? And so is the expectation that you are, as the cisgender person in the room, open to the shooting of shot and just a respectful no thank you if that's not what you're interested in? Or
whether or not you're
right, because that in my mind would be that would be your safe space, right? That would be where if you identify or if you are a lesbian and you go to this place and you happen to take your girls with you who are not, that is your safe space, which means if you shoot your shot at somebody, then not that it should be expected, but it should, whatever the response be, should be respectful in whatever manner that is.
I felt the safest and had the most fun at gay parties.
Right.
Yeah.
But do you also
time.
do you feel infiltrated too? Like, do you also feel like, okay, then why are you here? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
No, because you can both be lesbians. Someone shoot
Yeah.
a shot and you decide that they're not for you.
Right.
Exactly.
agreed.
I mean, but it is what Nicole is asking can be a problem if it's like, okay, which of y'all can I not? Right. I don't want to ask all y'all are straight.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, do you need to have like a sign on or something
Like the little red
straight.
green.
I was just about to say the same thing.
Yes. Because I'm like,
I think
I done
honestly-
spent all night looking at you and you ain't even like, get my face.
You are one
I
same.
feel like the bigger issue is like if someone finds you attractive and they try to shoot their shots and you are not attracted to that gender, like why is it the worst thing that'll ever happen to someone, right? Because like
Yeah.
that's
Right.
okay,
Right.
cool. Because again, like you're saying, like even if it's like two hetero folk, right? You're like, oh, thanks, but no thanks, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Like this idea that, oh, I can't believe you hit on me, and then now you gotta like have a reactive, violent, a
Right.
violent reaction to someone, and like that just seems imbalanced to me. It's like, again, if cis men could learn how to like,
Facts.
Just say no, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
when cis men push and like try to be like, holler at women and whatever else, right? They understand boundaries because let that be a nigga try to holler at that dude. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like,
Yes.
they know what the boundary is. They know how to hold it. And so I feel like, so it's not that we don't know how the skills or the ways, we practice those things. It's like, look, hey, no, thank you. And they just keep it moving. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Again, gender. But I think, Carol, you had said something and my head is still rolling around and maybe I won't be able to answer it well, but like, if I don't know you, and I mean, I know of you, right?
Mhm.
And know you're, into Black men, and that's fine, right? But like this idea that like, if I meet someone on the street, as a trans person who doesn't have, like is masculine leaning, but doesn't have like all the cis men parts, I guess, right?
Mhm.
Without knowing, one, what you're into, who you're into, like what kind of gender you're into, and or, what body parts are definitely your thing, which ones are definitely not your thing. I feel like, again, this coming up with disclosure, if everyone were to disclose, right, then I would know very clearly, okay, cool, you're not a lesbian because you told me you're not a lesbian.
Right.
But now I can conduct myself accordingly, right? But this idea, I think sometimes where it becomes dangerous is we're all coming into this with assumptions, right?
Mhm.
I'm assuming you are cisgender.
Right.
For all I know, you are trans. I don't know until you tell me so, right?
Right.
Right.
There's a possibility.
Mhm.
But if we're all able to disclose, I guess, then now it's not me as a trans person trying to like mind read, like, okay, I wonder what she's into.
Mhm.
Maybe it's whatever. And then having them to say, okay, and by the way, here's all my stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think there has to be some level of, how do you help, I guess, alert folk
Yeah.
Right.
who know you, whether or not they can holler at you. Like when
Yeah.
you said, like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's our thing. How does one know that without like, wearing a t-shirt, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have to be conversation. You know what I mean? Like we have to talk to get to know each other more, to know what I'm into, what you're into, what you're comfortable with, what I'm comfortable with. So I agree that there's going to be some level of us getting to know each other before, which any sexual partner,
Right.
you're going
Yeah.
to be able to, you're going to have to talk to them to know what they're into, what they're not
If I
into,
wanna
what their
talk to you or
boundaries
not.
are. Yeah. Like before,
right.
yeah, before I drop my drawers, like I'm assuming we're having a conversation first, like, you know what I
Right,
mean? Like
right.
regardless, but I do like what you're saying is like both people are disclosing, and there has to be open communication on both ends, regardless of what's between your
Instead of
legs.
assuming-
Right.
Which is interesting
Yeah.
because I feel like a lot of times what you're hearing now is like, why should it matter? Why should it matter? Blah, 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 which would lead to being less conversation or you not talking about it that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what you're presenting is the exact opposite, which is no, let's Let's
air it all
let's
out.
air it all
Just
out.
normalize it.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
normalize it instead of
Yeah.
trying to say it doesn't matter. It does matter.
It does.
Yeah.
Let's validate. It does
Yes.
matter. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And why are
Yeah.
you not talking to the person you're having sex with? Like,
Yeah.
regardless of, there should be some level
'Cause
of us getting to know each other
Yeah,
before,
that's real.
whatever that means to you. Like, I'm not sex shaming
Yeah.
or slut shaming or whatever that looks like. I'm not doing any of that. But I would assume before we have some type of sexual interaction, we've had
Mhm.
conversation about our boundaries and what that means
Yeah.
and what that looks like.
Because even
Yeah,
in like
'cause
a
consent.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
and especially in like a dating scenario, if it's not like a one night stand, I would imagine that some of the conversations that's happening are like your preferences in the bedroom. If you
Yeah.
intend on taking the relationship there, it is
Right.
like kind
Right.
of setting expectations and what you like. And I think that you asked a very interesting question to start off with when Carol posed her point of at what point is it, some people consider it deception at that point, if that is when you disclose that you may not have the assumed organs that the other party may assume if they don't ask you like straight out. And I think that that is an interesting piece of this conversation, because I don't know that I would consider it deception at that point. If we make it all the way to the bedroom and we haven't talked about it, then I might feel a little bit differently, and that may not be fair of me either. Like in light of this conversation, that's starting to like shift for me.
Yeah.
But I think that we're getting to know each other, and in getting to know each other, you tell me new information, which is part of getting to know one another.
Right.
Then it's not deception. Now I am informed and I get to choose what I want to do with this information.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I just we're here listening to like that particular TikTok that we saw of when people disclose and when they don't. It just seems like the safest option to me to tell someone before we get to the bedroom.
Right.
So that everyone involved can make an informed choice.
Yeah.
Because when you, and I'm not trans, so I don't know the nuances of what that means. But I just assume that if you tell someone before we get there, if I'm not in person, if we do it via text message or through a dating app, whatever, that seems like the safest option.
Well, I
for
also feel like
everyone.
it's a read the room type situation. Like I feel like in some instances, you in conversation, you can, it's like when you meet a new person and then you start offloading some things that otherwise you wouldn't. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe I shared all of that with you. Right. It's probably because you felt like you were in a safe space, so you could share that.
Yeah.
So, and
Real.
you read the room, like something happened in that exchange where you felt comfortable enough to unload all of that. And I feel like in some cases, or let me not, I feel that I imagine that in some cases that might be the case. Like maybe, and in thinking about some of the responses from the reference that we use, most of them were like in a message, right? So then that there's some type of distance in common space or whatever. So then that way you felt safe because, you're creating a safe space. But if you're getting to know someone over a period of time, then I feel like sometimes organically you can learn when you feel safe.
Yeah.
So I have a question for y'all. Kind of the reverse of what you had asked a little bit earlier, about like at what point like a trans person would disclose in like a romantic or a sexual relationship with someone. At what point, I guess, would you want to know, like what would be the line, I guess, for your expectation for knowing about someone being cis or trans or whatever in the same type of relationship? Like when would it feel like deception to you versus, oh, now they felt safe enough to disclose?
I think I'll go first just because I feel like I just kind of touched on it. But I think definitely before we're like about to have sex, like if I am making a realization, not because it was ever stated to me, but because I'm seeing it, I feel like that to me would be like, let's pause and would probably be like a little bit mad because now I'm half naked and uncomfortable. Because like we have to, instead of like going into like the throes of whatever was about to happen, like now we have to like stop and now have a discussion around like what is about to transpire. And so I think for me, I think it's interesting to like talk about this in the sense of like what you create space for. And I think that is like in a lot of different topics. Like you can shoot yourself off at the mouth like really early and talk about like how you don't like kids and blah, blah, blah. And someone then with kids that's interested in you may suddenly be like, well, I don't know like how to tell you that I have a son and I don't want it to be a deal breaker if you like me for me. You know what I mean? And I think that creates can create issues. But I think that definitely like I still would expect like I don't want to walk into your house and like see your kid's playpen and see your child and then be like, Nick.
Right.
Right. So I think that for me, that's the line. Like I want to like I need to know that you have enough respect for me to specify things before I'm gonna like visually like be in that moment. Like and that is me knowing that I will say, to create space for those conversations to be easy. I don't try to like come out of the woodwork with a lot of hard nose and lines in the sand and like really offensive ways to communicate so that it kind of makes it scary. But that is my truth, I think.
No, I agree with you. For me, I would say my biggest thing, I don't like to be lied to. Like, I feel like if we can talk.
Is a mission a lie?
Yes, for me. Like I can get over and we can talk through a lot of things. If I discover something on my own without you being forthcoming, that is very, very hard for me to overcome. So if we're, same with Tiff, if we're getting to the point where we're in the throes and we're about to have a physical relationship with each other and I find it out, that is going to be very hard for me to reconcile with versus you just telling me ahead of time.
Yeah.
So for me, and it doesn't have to be the first time or the instant that we meet. It could be a few dates in or whatever, whenever we get to a point where you feel comfortable disclosing the information. Like, I'm not saying off the bat, you have to tell me every one of your deepest, darkest secrets or personal information. Like, I don't feel that way, but I do want to make sure that you're being honest with me before I have to find it out in a way where it feels dishonest.
Yeah.
I cannot speaking for all women, but the dishonesty part of it or feeling like you're being deceived is very like hard to reconcile with. And I know that changes and that's different for every person.
Because I think that also for me, when it happens, it also feels like, well, what else don't I know?
Lying about?
Yeah, which is like not like a mindset that I enter like interactions with.
Yeah, same. I trust before. For me, I trust before I think. Before I don't trust. Like, I'm giving you the I'm trusting you until you prove to me that you can't be trusted.
Innocent till proven guilty.
And that's how I. And that might be it is to my detriment. So I want to believe that you're being honest with me, and I'm believing that I can trust you. You know what I mean? So I want to trust the person that I'm with.
Nicole, you want to answer and then I'll answer?
So I would like to think that I'm not that no one isn't. Me personally and how I move, I'm more open-minded where I don't think I would ever see it as deception. I think that it's learning a person.
Wait, ever?
No, I mean, obviously we getting ready to get it in and you tell me, I'm not gonna be heartbroken. I might be like, well, we're here.
I'm not shocked, but
mainly because, let me also say this, because personally, I don't think I would ever get that far, because for me in a relationship, sex is very important. Like, it's very important.
You wouldn't get what far? Right. Like, you wouldn't be like months.
I don't even think that I would get to the bedroom before I don't know.
So you would have felt around and like,
huh?
The hand motion.
I mean,
you were talking about digging in the abyss a second ago.
Right. I mean,
Nicole would ask for a dick pic. Y'all talking about me.
I mean, I probably...
You said it about you.
Yes, you did. As you drink your drink.
I was joking.
Right. Right.
I don't like dick pics. I really hate them.
Trauma.
I think...
But let's not forget Tiffany's remote. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Listen, if you're going to send it.
I mean, cost comparison.
I'm just saying.
No, I mean, because it's very important for me, I don't think I would ask those questions, because I'm concerned about like how I'm pleasing you and how you pleasing me. Like, I want to know those things, so that way I know how to go forward. Now, if you now, I'm not saying this.
Wait, what does that mean? Can you?
Yeah, so
Sorry, you're gonna have to get into the.
yeah,
okay.
if you were in the throes and you had no prior conversation and you find out this person does not have what you expected.
When I was younger, I probably would be like, well, let me see what it feels like, because
Wait, but you also just said you'd be having conversations around I'm pleasing you and you're pleasing me. Is that what you just said? So what does that conversation usually go like for you?
I mean, it like, what do you like? Like, just like it's just like you
Let me
have
see your text
conversations like, what
messages.
is your favorite food? What is your favorite color? And then when you progress in the conversation, you're on some late night, and like, what you like? You
So
know,
you're-
a whole lot of
so
things.
is there a lot of
like, 'cause I like to
first-
give that sloppy toppy.
I mean, I'm not saying all of that.
You're not. Okay.
So wait, you're
Not
I mean,
there.
but, so there's no one. So you're saying that. So then that's not deception because you've already talked about it before.
Right. But I also like, if we didn't get into the conversation of, okay, well, maybe I have a prosthetic versus I was born with it, then if I didn't learn that until in the bedroom, it's a toss up. Either I'm like, well, that's not really what I'm feeling right now, or I ain't never had it before. Let's try.
That's fair.
That's progressive.
But I don't think
Doesn't
that I
matter.
would be. I don't think I consider it deception just because you don't tell me that it's
not real.
not real.
And I've already told you that what I like is this.
Right, because
The
I mean,
realness
maybe
is
you
not what
prove
we
me.
discussed.
Maybe I've always said, well, no, I mean, it's not real. I don't want it. And I know I've said that before. But if you prove me wrong, then
What if,
what's I'm gonna do?
but what if they don't?
Then I'm like, okay, now my
Now you know.
now my preference is solidified. But that's not for me.
Okay, but is it preference or is it like how that person maneuvers that?
Right.
thing?
Maybe they just
It
don't
could
know how
be
to
like-
slang that.
Yeah, the same way that we
twang.
have.
It could
yeah.
be, but
The same way that you have bad sex with
you're right.
regular.
But then, so then let me ask this question. When you experience something bad, don't you normally generalize and you categorize it anyway?
No.
You
I
don't?
haven't
So
done that
you're
with
saying you've
Keen.
had back sex, so all penis is bad?
Right.
No, but I could probably say,
What
yeah,
you about to say?
if you got a pencil dick, it's
I don't even know how we got here.
So that's why you be asking for dick pics.
The girth.
I mean, you be having shopping catalogs where you go buy the purses, you know.
For
so I
sure.
mean,
I mean, I guess
sure.
that's interesting. I guess like and talking about like the conversations around like pre-sex and like what happens and like what you like and like what
Right.
you. To me, like part of that is like the conversation around like what you like to do too. And
Yeah.
so like is like if
Mhm.
oral is something that you like to do and is that an option in these scenarios? Like I, don't.
I wasn't talking
Yes.
specific.
Okay.
I was just saying that's what you're talking about, the things that you like.
No, but I
and
mean,
don't
wouldn't
like.
you be specific in a
Yes,
real
I
life?
would. With the
That
person
was my
I'm having a
point. I
conversation
obviously
To me,
with.
that's
trying to
Okay.
ask you.
That's the opening.
Okay.
To me, if you're going that far in a conversation, that is to me an opening for
Yeah.
the other
So you
person.
said all of that to agree with us.
But saying it further down.
Probably, no, I
Nicole,
misunderstood it on the
Nicole.
front end. Maybe I just missed it. You know, it takes me a minute.
I'm not
Just
saying
give me
we're
time.
against it. I'm just saying be honest
Yeah.
about what is happening before
Right.
we get to that point.
But I mean, the difference is Nicole said that it wouldn't be a deal breaker if that is when she learned too.
No, but since Nicole's not against it if she would like it. She just has to know if she likes it.
No, but even if I don't, I'm not gonna be like, you're garbage. Like, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
do
You
that.
are if it
No one
sucks.
said that.
You
I
are
mean,
if you don't enjoy it. That's what you're
that's
saying.
not true. I just now I made a note like that's not for me. But I mean,
You could be a city girl and
even
put it in
a
a song.
cisgender, even a
Oh, wait,
cis male. Shut up. Even a cis male. I mean, I've had my fair share, and I probably have been like, no, I'm not gonna deal with that person ever again because.
But you didn't
no.
generalize
trash.
penis by this one person, is what we're saying.
And so,
Okay. Saya, do you want to chime in?
thank you.
Okay. Moving on. I think the thing that stuck out the most when you asked the question for me is whether or not like how in which disclosing, like when do you need to have it, and the fact that it is something that is important to you, and whether or not it's important to the person that is having to disclose it, like in the moment, right? Like I think for me, we've internalized a lot sometimes, like about it being about ourselves and not really so much about the other person sometimes. And I get, like, don't get me wrong, we're all evolved to try to figure out exactly what we like, what we don't like, and where we're at. But I don't know that it really matters as much as we say it is sometimes. I don't know. I get this feeling like it is because there's other things behind it sometimes, or like where we're at right now in society is very much like there is no, I can get jiggy with whatever type scenario. It's pretty much like, no, I have these preferences, but where do these preferences lie? Or again, because we said preferences, right? Like people call them preferences, but are those mixed in with
prejudices?
Prejudices,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And I think for me, disclosure is important when it becomes a way in which I will have to interact with it. Anything before that, like let's just say we're having a regular conversation, I'm not worried about whether or not you have born with breasts or have a vagina or whatever the case may be. For me, that's not a matter. But when it gets, and I think this is what you guys are all getting to, but it's more so about when am I going to have to interact with it
Your vagina.
and with the vagina, or if it is for me a trans woman and I'm having to determine whether or not you're disclosing this information. And I think it's only important if I know that I'm going to have to determine how I want to navigate it with you.
Yeah.
Like until that point, I don't really care. We can be vibing, doing whatever. Because at that point, then I want to know what we talk about what you like, but I don't even think it's what you like. I think it's more so like, where are you comfortable with dealing with? Because it could be you don't want your nether regions touched at all. You just want to be able to please me or whatever the case may be. And if I don't have to interact with it, we don't need to talk about it.
But wait, okay.
So
hold on. So what about if so in instances of like abstinence, where people decide that they don't want to have sex before marriage. So there's a potential that we won't interact with your nether region before marriage.
But you talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm asking. So in your case, like when do we talk about it? If I'm never interacting with it until later.
But again, I think for me, it's not. It's one of these things of, all right, if we're in the space, if I did get married to somebody and end up being a trans person, and I'm very much a person that I am into the person. That's just for me. So I don't have to worry about that until that point. And then how do we navigate? We navigate it however we need to.
You wouldn't feel deceived if it never came up?
Well, so here's the thing. I think for me, I also have never I don't think that sex looks like one way or it always has to be certain thing. And there's some things that I like that really, like if you don't need X, Y, and Z and you know what I like and I don't have to interact with whatever that is, or it doesn't have, we don't have to worry about how we're going to navigate it or to have that conversation because that's not what is important to you. I'm fine with that.
That's also just the way an extreme situation.
But it's
abstinence until marriage. Like, how long are you dating and how long are you engaged before you actually get married? And you're trying to tell me that at no point that sex comes up, or at least in conversation, especially if you understand and identify what is important. I'm thinking about if you're preparing for marriage, right? And you talk about all the things that are important to you in a marriage. So it's like, if you had to categorize 1 through 5, what's most important, what's least.
Right.
And I know for me,
niggas be lying.
God,
and don't be talking.
Sex, and so on and so forth. Right?
God,
right.
Sex.
So if we're having the conversation, go ahead. No.
That issue is not that they're trans, it's that there was some level of not being able to share. If you're about to get married, you've shared.
Right.
We're assuming.
Well, you should have.
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like at that point, it's not because they're trans. It could have been a cis person who left out some stuff,
for sure.
Yeah.
You're just fairly
I'm kind of curious,
right.
If this person were post-op, would your answers change?
Yes, for me. I feel like if you're post-op, there's less talk.
You're saying there's less to talk about?
Yeah,
because you have the parts.
Because you now have the quote unquote assumed parts. So I feel like in the terms of disclosure, I feel like if you've had full if you fully I don't even know transitioned. Yes, if you fully transitioned.
Where it's both, and to be clear, that means that you have transitioned not only in the way you want the world to receive you, but also physically.
Yeah.
Am I missing?
Socially, medically and socially, yeah.
Yeah, then I feel like personally, I don't know if you need to tell someone that you are trans. Yeah. So for me, if you've fully transitioned physically, I don't think you need to disclose anything.
Ever?
No.
Never.
No.
So at marriage?
No. Why?
Well, I do have points where I think that you
I
might
do
want
think
to.
you do, because when
Yeah,
you
I don't
meet the
agree with that.
family and mom has pictures of both before and after, you never
feel
want
you.
to see a baby picture of
No,
your
I feel
significant
you. I
other?
do feel what you're saying. I just feel like it's less of a. The conversation to me is now different. You're now talking to me about a former life of yours.
Right.
Well, what we're also, and again, this is like highly conceptual in a very extreme situation.
Yes.
But if you and I are getting married and you have transitioned to a man and I'm expecting to procreate with you, then that's something
I
that we
agree.
can do.
I would hope that we are close enough where you would have this conversation with me for sure.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's the expectation.
No, I agree. I think that at some point it
So
should
we
come
did all
up.
of this for you to agree.
I just disagree. I'm just saying.
You
I
just
just
told me
feel
no.
like the
On
conversation.
tape. Like,
I just
oh,
feel
how the
like
tables
the
have turned.
I just feel like the conversation is different. Is all I'm saying.
Okay,
I would say
different,
that I don't.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
All
don't know.
of that
Conversation is
just to
different.
agree.
I don't know if you would need to tell me.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know that you would need to tell me before we have sex for the first time if that's the case, but no, I would feel away, I think.
Before sex.
Yeah, I think I would feel away. Not because like I want to like judge, or I just like it seems like a pretty large change to me. Like that seems like
that's part of the reason why
but
I
again,
wouldn't.
I would feel the same
Why
way.
you wouldn't tell
Why wouldn't expect
the
Because
conversation?
because I think that it would be so large
Yeah.
of a thing that disclosure for them, they've already did all of this work.
Yeah.
And now you are still upset.
Yes, and that's where I.
But you're also, see, and this is why I don't like a mission, because you have decided that you can't disclose something to me because of what you fear my reaction will be. But
I'm not saying that
you
at all.
haven't given me the opportunity to actually have
That's
a reaction.
not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying
There's
they are
some
living.
people who are like stealth and they don't use trans in front of their name. Like, I'm trans and I don't, but there's some people who they're just men or they're just women. They don't have trans.
I just feel
in
the
front of it.
conversation is different. I don't feel the conversation shouldn't happen at some point. I just feel like the conversation is now different.
For me, my point of view is it's not omission, one, because I'm a man, period, point blank, period, or I'm a woman, point blank, period.
Right.
What you're feeling is like it needs to be disclosed. What I'm telling you is I am a man or I am a woman, and I have lived this way even if it's a couple weeks or for however long, I've lived in this way of like people either making judgments or saying whatever, and I'm comfortable where I'm at right now. When I am ready to have this in-depth conversation with this other person that I am with, then I will share that, or I may never, right? Because how I've had to interact with coming into full knowledge of who I am as a human being doesn't mean I need to relive it every time I am dating somebody and they want to get to know me. And that's my thing. Like, it takes a long time for individuals who have not lived the life of just cis and have not lived the life of heterosexual to even get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone has finally gotten there, if they are comfortable where they're at and they don't feel like they need to until we progress into a certain point, especially I understand that I don't have to interact with anything other than what I have assumed you are, as far as you have not disclosed that you are not cis. So I'm interacting with this body part in the ways in which we have determined work for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to tell me until we've gotten to a close enough relationship where, at this point I'm sharing, hey, X, Y, and Z. Me personally, I'm thinking medically. That things are changing medically. So there are things that I may need to know about you since I'm caring for you and since I may or may not be your first line person that you call. That to me might be the time that I would see somebody saying, oh, I might need to. And I care enough about that person to do that. And want them to be that part of my life. So I need them to understand and not be surprised if the doctor says some stuff that we haven't previously talked about. That to me seems important. But as far as the relationship, no.
This is where it's interesting to me, being that being previously married or not was one thing that was important to you to disclose. Because from that same line of thinking, like if I'm divorced, I'm single. I'm not I'm not separated. I used to be married. I am a single human being. And there are certain things to me that are just important enough to be disclosed about before we reach relationship status. And that's to me. And I don't want to use that as like a point of judgment or like, but I have to have some kind of understanding of
who you are,
why certain things may trigger you, why certain things are like absolutely black zones to you, why certain things are like not a conversation that are light that may be for me that aren't for you. Like, you know what I mean? And I feel like in order to have like a relationship that is on like past the surface level, or that is deep and rich enough so that we are gaining trust in those ways, this shouldn't be a secret. And that's what it is to me, because especially like I mean, maybe it's one thing like if you started transitioning when you were like 8. If you were a full-blown adult and made this transition, like I just feel like there is a lot of your life now that is a vacuum because you were not who you consider yourself to be now then.
Right. So as you talk about single or divorced, it's interesting you bring that up because I've thought about that in some instances where we've been in settings where it's like, how do you classify yourself, single, you know, divorced or whatever have you. And I think a lot of that is a status that also coincides with mental growth or emotional growth and healing, right? Because I feel like as someone who might be divorced, yes, they're divorced, but there's some people that stay divorced. There's some people that stay widowed or widower. And then there's some people that find that moment of healing where they transition into singleness, right? So as you utilize those statuses, it's, to me, it's just a status. Because I mean, at the end of the day, I'm in a very committed relationship, but I filed my taxes as single. So it's like, back to your point earlier, labels. It's a label that you put on yourself to help society know how to categorize you.
Yeah.
Only reason I brought up marriage, though, I have to back that up a little bit, though, is because of the ways in which individuals interact with the rest of their life. You could be divorced and still have some type of tie to a person that you were married to.
Right.
And that the way in which you move with that person, if they showed up and I ain't know nothing about this, or I'm hearing about this person and I'm assuming that this is like a friend, but y'all used to smash and we're married and we're talking like all of those things to babies. Me, that's because and it doesn't matter until I have to, like, I wouldn't need to know about that. I don't think like right away, but I'm gonna need to know how often are we still interacting with this person to the point where I'm gonna have to interact, and what does that look like for me? So that's why I'm saying, like, I hear what you're saying, but I'm also saying when I'm interacting with you with regards to all the other people that are in your life and how you move and how you navigate, how is that going to impact what we do? Sure. And what I've experienced is I'm dealing with what I've experienced is I'm dealing with your ex, you know, and the ways in which, like, you know, I don't know, on a day-to-day situation, my ex did X, Y, and Z.
Right.
If you weren't ever married, I wouldn't have to worry about, like, I wouldn't have to worry from that standpoint. Everybody has an ex, but marriage has other things that you know, money, family, a lot of other things that you're tied into, and those interactions changed based on, I've been in situations where people have thought I was the ex-wife, when in reality, I'm the new person, and y'all have not finalized paperwork, so people
Lord.
like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want to be in that space. I don't want to, that space I don't want to be in, but I think that if I agree, losing a lot of time in between when somebody identified it in one way and has changed it, and not sharing that with somebody feels like it can be a loss a little bit in relationship, but y'all can gain that back. I think that there's levels to relationships, and eventually, you may not know it right away, but you eventually gain in that perspective and seeing that part of their lives that shouldn't take away from y'all's relationship, but instead grow.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I'm not saying that there is like a right time to disclose it, but I do think that it's not unbelievable to me that I do expect that information at some point if that is part of your story.
Yeah.
The same way that I expect I mean, I've heard stories about like how you skinned your knee, how you broke your femur, how you know what I mean? Like this is part of your life.
Yeah.
Like it's not.
Yeah.
I don't want the information to judge you for it. I want the information so that I can know
Understand
how,
you.
I fully understand.
Yeah,
you.
like
No,
the
that's
same way
real.
that like people get divorced and then they never want to get married again, or they have kids and they have vasectomy because they are done having kids. Like those are. I want to know why you're done having. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's
like,
right.
There are like pieces of your story that make up who you are, and in order to love you, this is a piece of your story that I want to know.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not trying to be a hypocrite by any means. I just feel like I said, I don't feel like that information should not be disclosed. I just feel like the conversation around it is different.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I think that this leads me into asking what may be our last question, but what are ways that we can take the burden off of trans people from having this conversation? Like, what are ways to have these conversations that are like natural and don't feel like work to parties?
Yeah, for me, I like to tell people, don't show me the work just because I'm in the room. Like, I'm going to prepare the room before I get there. Like people are like, oh, let's do pronouns. And they don't do it other times because like no one knows what you mean when you say it, but they only ask pronouns when I'm there. I'm like, well, now you just put me on blast. Like, just give the pronouns, right? So make that like, so I guess like normalize, asking pronouns and not making assumptions. I like to not assume when I'm explaining someone like, oh, like that woman, I don't know if that person's a woman or not, right? So, but also, I don't want to raise someone if woman is their title. I'm not trying to ungender someone if they are decidedly gendered, right? So I would definitely say, like do some learning on your own. We got the same internets that we can look up stuff,
GTS.
right? And,
Well,
and like, oh,
can I'm curious about this because I know that in just some of my, I don't know, people, nonetheless, anyway, I'm just trying to get my words together. I'm just trying to get my words together. I feel like sometimes, at least my niece and I had talked about normalizing, utilizing they, them until you know, right? Now, is that improper? Like, and I'm just thinking out loud. I'm not expecting an answer, but is that improper? Because like you said, you don't want to diminish if someone does, if their pronouns are she or he or whatever they, whatever they identify as. But I feel like until you know, they, them come to me kind of is safe, right? So that way you don't misgender anybody, but you also are not making any assumptions that they, you know what I'm saying? So it's like you say that until they refer to themselves as something or until they correct you accordingly.
Yeah, that's why I whenever I do my trainings, I tell people that too. Like, look, you can share your pronouns or not. I don't want to assume. But also, I'm going to use they until you tell me otherwise.
Right.
I think that does a lot because one, it allows folk who are not used to saying they can practice with everybody. Right. Now it's less awkward when that one person tells you, oh, my pronouns are they, them.
Right.
Now you've had practice because you're assuming everybody's they until they tell you otherwise. Right. But I think the other thing too, right, is that's how cultures begins to shift. We don't make assumptions about you're dressed a certain way or you look a certain way, or I'm really like, the further north I am, I feel like more people read me as female than like the further south I am. Like I'm almost 100% male down here. And so it's fascinating to just see the difference, and
where are you more comfortable?
It depends. Like I feel like a northern misgendering feels less violent than like a southern gender you this way, but find out, oh wait, you mean you're not like what?
Okay.
Yeah. But it could also be because a lot of the movies we've seen, like Boys Don't Cry, all that happened in the South and Matthew Shepard, Wyoming. So that was like in Wyoming, I guess, right? So but I love that, a lot more media, right, is sharing newer and bigger and wider stories of not just our pain and trauma and violence, but also our celebration, our brilliance, our, appropriated culture of like, suburban white kids trying to, vote, like just, or even pride festivals every year, right? Like how that was Black trans women in particular, or trans women of color, just trying to exist. And here come the white folk and make it like, but it's a party. Don't bring in the struggle here. Like, so just the ways in which I guess like being able to like honor our histories, learn the stories. Who's Marsha P. Johnson? Who's Sylvia Rivera? Right? learning our stories, not just like, the or Bayard Rustin, MLK Jr.
Yeah.
I didn't know about him till I was grown.
Same, man.
What?
Same.
So learning the wider histories and not just the ones that the whites tell us we can listen to and pay attention to, right? Malcolm versus Mike or Martin, for example, or just not being able to hear, I guess, the full richness of our histories, and honestly, I would say, like, if you don't know that like, everybody knows a trans person, whether or not you know it, right? But if you're not aware of the trans people in your circle, we have the interwebs where you can literally talk to just anybody, right? And even if it's not to talk to, like, in a real time, but like, follow Janet Mock. What's Laverne Cox talking about, right? Who are some of the other queer folk who are figuring it out? Look at them, the social media account, them, right? So there's many places where you can actually, like, learn a little bit more and, like, get immersed in it. And I think the biggest thing that I feel like where that would actually make a change is, like, say something to your people, jokes are not jokes. Because jokes turn into violence for a lot of us, right? So disrupting dangerous, jokes and memes and whatever else, right? Like, where trans folk are always the butt of the joke, or it's violence or whatever else. But just in recent years, like, even just like on social media, like all these, like, some of my favorite Black sites, I don't even go to the comments when they're like, what do you think about this? Like, that's actually a very violent question for, like, a shade room or whomever else, like, just a blanket, not like a, whoa, let's protect all Black women.
Right.
Not just the cis ones, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, what do you think about this? Then it's all these deception and Jesus come now and all these other, like, really ignorant Black tropes that I'm like, I'm just so over, you know what I'm saying? Like, at least come up with something clever. Like, that shit is so tired. Like, if you're gonna disrespect me creatively, because this shit ain't it. Like, it's hella stale,
Yeah.
So being able to disrupt comments and, like, around, Thanksgiving tables or at work, like, what are you willing to risk if you really say that you care about us? And I can't determine for you what that risk is, right? It's not for everybody to go get arrested or put their bodies on the streets, right? But it may be that you're talking to the president of your job, like, hey, we have all these single stall bathrooms. Why are they gendered? Like, it's a one at a time bathroom. Why is there a man or, how many of us have gender bathrooms in our homes? What is the gender of a toilet? You know what I'm saying? Like, the gender of a toilet is what, or even calling out bathroom laws. They're written as though, it's trans folk enacting the violence, when 0% of trans people have actually harmed people in bathrooms, and almost 100% of cis men are the ones who enact violence.
Right. Yeah.
But the laws are written for trans folk, right? So interrogate that. That shit doesn't match. Call your, all the young trans folk right now, all these laws and legislations and schools and whatnot, find out, and listen and believe the young people, like, what are their needs, and then go to bat for them. Are your pastors, what's coming out of the pulpits? Call them out.
I also want to piggyback on something that you said, and if we decide that this is inappropriate, we can cut it, because I'm kind of going off script. But I think I want to go back to what you said about, like, even asking that question is violent, because
what question?
When he was talking about like the shade room, just being like, what do you think about this? And that being like a blanketed question is like kind of violent, because we softballed these questions to someone else that we were asking if they wanted to be a guest on the show, and were informed that our questions were not thought out enough, or like could be violent. And I think I just want to surface this, because I feel like it was an opportunity for us to learn something that we couldn't learn because the conversation wasn't had with us. And I try to, and this is probably not correct for me to do, but sometimes when I'm having a hard time, like, understanding where, like, queer people are coming from, sometimes I try to think about, like, how white people talk to us about being Black all the time. And like, sometimes I feel like in that lens of, like, well, you can, like, look this up, like, you can learn, you can, like, the onus of your education is not on us. And I feel like that is true and valid. But I also feel like sometimes we miss an opportunity to explain real time, person to person, like, where they went left, or why this is wrong, or what they can learn in this moment. And instead we lose that by telling them to go do it themselves, and they don't, or they do, and it's not as compassionate as it could be, because it's not coming from a person that they know. And so I kind of wanted to ask, were there questions here that we asked you that are completely inappropriate to ask trans people in day to day, and how you contend with that, some of what those topics are, what those boundaries may be. And I'm not asking you to speak for trans people like as a whole, but just like your experience of what that is and what those lines are, because I do think that people are curious, and it's not always from a standpoint of like wanting to be insidious, but it is just from a standpoint of ignorance. And so like how can we communicate that or help our listeners understand what that means or is?
That's real.
Yeah. So for me, because of the invitation and who the invitation was from, it was an easy yes for me, right? If this same invitation came from like, I don't know, some nice whites, Tim, I would have definitely been like, how much do you pay me to come do this? It's a very different, you know what I'm saying? So like I have gotten kind of follow y'all kind of peripherally. I did kind of binge listen before this moment, but be like seeing how y'all hold space for the kinds of conversations you already have on other topics. I felt like it was safe enough for me to be like, all right, cool. I can get vulnerable. I might be like tossing and turning time, like, oh shit, I said a whole bunch of stuff. Like there's things that I've just said here that I haven't even talked, people in my family.
Oh, okay.
They have not even heard or known, right? So, but again, I feel like for me, like this is all of who I am, and I'm done hiding, you know.
Thank you for feeling
and
safe
not even
with us.
hiding for like because I'm ashamed, but hiding because of safety.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like being able to. So my yes to y'all, right, was for me learning that. Well, one, the shame was never mine, even though it was my weight to carry.
Yeah.
And because of how y'all hold space for other difficult conversations, I felt okay to come here to have this difficult conversation.
Man, that is meaningful for us to hear.
It is.
Yeah. Kind of generally, kind of like, you know, actually when I was coming out, I was a pastor of a local church. And so I had to like be in the pulpit. I'm like, listen, y'all, here's what's going on, right? As my voice was dropping, like, do you have a cold? I'm like, nah, the tea is kicking in. It's cool, right? So having a somewhat public transition, one of the things I told them early on was like, listen, just as a general rule, if the thing that you want to ask this person is something they can ask you back without you feeling like it was inappropriate, like if you're in a relationship where talking about what's in your pants or under your clothes or whatever is awkward, don't ask them those questions, right?
Yeah.
Now, if that's how you roll, like, hey, look, let's talk about it, you know? Like, and so I think asking yourself the question you're about to ask someone else, if they were to literally ask you the equivalent of what you're about to ask them, if it's inappropriate, don't open your mouth to say it. Like keep it to yourself, you know? And you can literally go search online. Like, and some of us, you know, who are transitioning but don't have any models, a lot of us had to use Google to find out like, well, shit, like what can I expect when I start using hormones? When I expect if I want to do a surgery, who do I go to get a surgery that's not going to botch me? You know, and like all the different layers of just like having to exist as a trans person. Like, yes, it can be exhausting to have to like answer like, yeah, but who's, you know, like, no, have you had the surgery? Like is an inappropriate question, for example.
Right.
One,
Yeah.
it's not the surgery, but also we don't even talk about all the layers of like privilege of even being able to have access to a surgery.
Right.
And even if you had that, trying to travel to someone who's not going to botch you, or, you know, all the scary videos now of like, you know, doctors
or even surviving.
Right.
All the loss along the way from like family who won't believe you or support you or whatever else, or jobs, you know, like we're chronically, you know, not either able to keep our employment or we get, you know, harassed, and just all the layers, I guess, of violence. So I think, you know, just being mindful of the cis privilege that y'all have in encountering, you know, a person who is trans, you know, especially as they're trying to figure out what that means for themselves, you know. And I would say, you know, be a listening ear, like I guess, listen, ask questions for clarity and not curiosity. That's one thing that I really actually hate is like, you know, some of my early dating months when I was like, look, let me just chill for a minute, was how, you know, if someone wasn't like turned off, I guess, or completely just shutting down, like, oh, you're trans, like I'm out. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I feel like sometimes I was in like trying to pursue a relationship that really I had no business pursuing because they weren't anti-trans. But then I ran into the issue of being like, now they're exotifying my body. Like, oh, let me just see. I'm like, I'm not a fucking science experiment.
Yeah.
So never mind, So just like layers of like, asking questions again. If it's like, why do I need to know this question?
Yeah.
If it's about clarity or knowing someone more fully, I think that's maybe a place where you can like ask. And again, everyone's going to have a different threshold
Of
for what those
course.
questions
Yeah,
are.
for sure.
Right.
If you're trying to be curious, ask Google, ask Siri, ask
Right.
Alexa.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
GTS.
I have a quick question
Really?
based on this. Have you ever felt like a fetish?
yeah. Oh, they're trans chasers. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how do you contend with that? Like trying to determine whether you genuinely want to know me as a person versus
Yeah.
you like fetishizing me based on something.
So I will say, I mean, I guess like the more confident I am and just like, not, I guess, seeking permission to be accepted,
Yeah.
which I mean, that's been like a long journey for me.
Yeah.
Like, I know who I am. God knows who I am. God knew who I was even before I was aware of the possibilities, right?
In your mother's
There's great
womb.
diversity.
Yeah.
And the more I've grown into that confidence, I'm happily single, maybe is my point, So it's like, you need to go get healed up.
Right.
Yeah.
Or I'm
Right.
not going to heal for you.
Mm-hmm.
And people name it as a trans issue, but I'm like, no, that's a transphobic issue. So
Yeah.
that's, you go pray about that shit. That's not mine.
Yeah.
Wow.
But also kind of what y'all were saying too, is like, I feel like, words are my art. So I feel like I will err on the side of like over communicating sometimes.
Mhm.
Most times. But like, so I feel like, being able to, again, in my own confidence, being able to discern the difference between like, okay, you just out here asking questions that you literally could have looked that up on your own. And, or if you have to ask me all your trans questions, like, bro, we have a whole internet, a whole TikTok, a whole Instagram, a whole Facebook where these are like one-on-one things that you can literally find out.
Right.
Not in a relationship with someone else.
Right.
But if you can only come to me for that, like we're not equals at that point,
Yeah.
So I may not maybe see that as like a trans issue, but like, I mean, same as blackness, even black people, like, okay, bro. Like,
Yeah. You're doing a lot.
Yes,
where
we
we
season
are.
our chicken. Damn, like you haven't seen.
Was it naturally curly, or do you have to like put things in it?
Oh my God.
It's so soft.
There's one lady at church that I was pastoring. She was like, "Oh my gosh," and then she was like, "Oh wait, we're not supposed to do that anymore." She's about to like touch my hair.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, man.
I fell out. I was like, "Oh sweet."
Well, at least you got taught. But
Yeah.
Lord,
At
never
least she
had.
stopped herself like.
I have this older white man
But also
that
like, what?
continues. Like he would not stop. Like it was almost like it became like a term of endearment. Like for him to be like, "What's the hairstyle this week?"
That happens to me a lot.
It wasn't like malicious, but
It's annoying.
given the fact that it came from an older white man, you're like, come on, like you should know better. But I mean, and this probably gonna come off wrong. I mean, him being a white gay man, it was like it's almost it's different.
It is.
It's
It is.
different. So
Yeah.
anyway,
It is.
An equivalent of that is, oh, what are your pronouns this week?
This week.
Oh, no.
my gosh.
Oh, I love it.
I would be fighting people. Man.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Anyway.
Well, thank you. I'm
Yes.
so thankful for this conversation.
Right,
I know we've been
too.
talking about this for a while, so the fact that we could have this, I'm also very happy that you felt safe enough to have this
Yeah.
conversation with us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I heard
Thank
that.
you.
Thank
Yes.
you all.
Yes.
Thank you for your yes.
Y'all out here like doing the Lord's work.
No, I love this. I'm so.
as well.
We've ever
I've
been
learned a
told
lot.
that.
Yeah.
You literally, us peripherally.
We love the Lord, but we gangster though.
Yes. No, I love
Not
this.
but and we and
Yes.
That needs to be a t-shirt.
Right.
We need merch.
Right. We do.
All right. Well, one thing we gonna do
It's
It's
tangent.
Hey, I love it.
Okay, so today's tangent is. Let me find it. Okay. What's something that is bizarre, weird, or off to you, but is normal to everyone else? Or what is something that is normal to you, but is bizarre for everyone else?
I can.
You gonna
I
go
thought
first?
about about this because I have something that's normal to me, but I didn't realize it was weird to other people till later.
Okay.
I cannot sleep if I don't have socks on.
Oh man,
I've heard of
I am
this a lot.
kicking my socks off in my sleep.
I can't sleep. Like I need to be like cozy and warm, and if my feet aren't warm, I can't go to sleep.
I literally use my
I will
feet
wake
to
up in the
regulate
middle of
my
the night
temperature.
if I forget or if I fall asleep prematurely. I will put socks on, and everyone in my family, and I think it's
So
also
you
because my
can
mom,
fall asleep without socks on.
but like I can't stay asleep.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I can't. And
Oh,
my
that's
mom,
nice.
I think she's always like, put some feet up, put some socks on. You can't be walking around this cold floor with socks. Like it's just like ingrained in me. Even Trey, like he'll say like, oh, I don't want to wear socks. I'm like, no, you're sleeping in socks. Like you,
Oh, baby.
Not
Yeah.
you pushing
Right.
your weird
I
tick on
will.
your child.
Yeah, it's trauma. We're passing along this trauma.
That's terrible.
It is. I'm sorry, son.
Do you
But it is
guys
what it is.
have answers?
I didn't know it was weird until I was like in relationship. They're like, why are you sleeping in socks? I was like, doesn't everyone? And they're like, no.
No,
I can.
No.
It's not like a deal breaker for me either.
It's a
way.
deal breaker for me. I need socks.
All right. Feel strongly about that
All
one.
right.
Also, don't put your feet on me either without socks.
Can we move on?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Not cut your weird out. Oh, weird.
Yeah. Anyone else? We can go talk about spaghetti and fried chicken or fish too. if you
Oh,
want.
my goodness. Yeah, I feel some type of way about that. Like,
Spaghetti by itself is not a meal.
it is spaghetti by itself.
Wait, what?
It has
No, it's not.
meat in it and everything.
Do you?
Meat, pasta sauce.
That's it.
No. Do you? So you eat spaghetti like solo? No fried chicken, no fish.
No, that's like a bonus meal.
No, no, no,
Right,
no, 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 no,
thank
no.
you.
Spaghetti by itself is not a meal. You need fried chicken or you need fried fish
No.
together.
If anything, maybe
Spaghetti is a side.
The
Or the fresh can
I
be a
feel like
side.
mac and cheese.
the
Some
Olive
people
Garden,
normalize
the Olive Garden.
Unless you're
salad.
Italian. Unless you're Italian. But niggas,
You speak for yourself.
spaghetti is not a meal by
Spaghetti is a
itself.
meal in my
I've
house.
never had spaghetti by itself, unless I was at an Italian restaurant or in Italy.
Oh.
Okay, flex.
Not you saying flex. You in more countries and all of us
Right,
combined.
Yeah, what's your passport look like?
Okay,
On the second or third one.
It looks like nothing because it's brand new. Okay.
Yeah, she
Not your-
ran out the last
Right, not
one.
your new ones. Your name just changed.
A lot
Anyway.
of shrapnel that I'm receiving.
Anyone else?
Shrapnel.
I was gonna say I
I be
don't.
drinking pickles out the jar
You drink pickles?
and the juice.
Wow,
like-
straight out the jar.
I'll drink the pickle juice so that way the pickles are open that I can like eat them without
Oh,
dipping my
that
finger.
makes
I want my
sense,
finger
though.
oils in
Wait,
the
wait, wait,
pickle
wait,
juice.
wait, 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 wait.
You know they
No,
make
that
jars
makes-
for this on Amazon, right?
Wait, what?
You don't just take the pickle out?
No, because okay, I'm not gonna eat. It's those like sweet gherkins, those little ones. So if you just dip your finger in the juice,
Or like a single
Why
one?
don't you just take a fork?
because you got to do this the whole time. It don't pick up right. Yeah.
Wait, are you talking about an
No, no.
individual pickle like
Yeah.
in the pack like you get from the
No,
corner
I'm
store?
not-
No,
pack.
the
No,
little
it's a
small,
jar.
the little
Tiny
small,
gherkins.
small,
So
like,
you buy the jar expecting there not to
Yeah.
be juice?
No,
No.
No,
Takes the
I
juice-
open it and there's
Mhm.
juice to the top.
Okay.
I don't want to just pick the pickle out because now my finger oils are going to be in the juice. So
Okay.
Okay.
I'll like drink some of the juice down and then
Okay.
I'll like eat
Wow.
the pickles that are above
This sounds
juice
like a
now.
stomach ache.
Okay, but on Amazon they make those jars that like it separates the juice from the pickle. So like you
That's
can sit them in
great.
the fridge and so you can leave them in the juice, but then when you want to take one out, you flip it over and the juice goes down and you can just pull out a pickle.
Or you could use a
I
fork.
will look that up.
You can use a fork.
That's too much work.
They said they didn't want to use a fork. Quit playing.
Okay.
Wait,
I'm
I
judging you and I shouldn't be. I'm sorry. This is no,
Yeah,
it's a free,
judging.
free
Crazy.
Sip a little
judgment
bit,
zone.
You have a few. Close it. Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
Okay.
that is weird, but I feel you.
I mean, at least I don't wear socks at night.
Touche. We can never sleep together because I need my partner to wear socks.
I love it. Terrible. Okay, so my weird thing that is normal to everyone else is mayonnaise. I don't get it. I don't understand who decided that eggs and oil needed to come together and be a
Delicious.
condiment. I don't know who saw an egg and was like, you know what? I want to spread that on everything.
I feel
What's a
Caucasian.
way that I can do
Do you
that?
guys remember Undercover Brother do you guys remember that movie?
Yeah.
That's how I feel. Not to that extreme. I need a condiment.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be mayonnaise, but there needs to be a condiment
I
on the
hate
sandwich.
mayonnaise.
I
And,
understand
like,
the
the
need for
rebrand
the-
of aioli, I kind of get. I
I
kind
don't
of
even
understand.
want that.
You don't
But
like
I don't-
aioli?
I think I'm racist against sauces because I don't like ranch
You don't
either.
like sauce?
No, I think I'm racist
Like,
against
what
sauces. So I
happens
don't
in the
exactly.
judge-free zone?
See, people gets me. I don't like white sauces. So I don't like Alfredo sauce. I don't like
Alfredo
I
is my
love
favorite.
mayonnaise.
Alfredo.
I don't like.
Wow, you're
ranch.
racist.
I am. I accept that.
I love all these sauces. I love a good sauce.
I love sauce. I just don't like those ones. But all right.
They gotta be of color.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, wow. Okay. Sorry, did you have one? Or you
I think mine, it's interesting because I was like, oh, I think mine might be like, I've talked about this before, but like people's need for cheese on everything. Like I just don't, I like macaroni and cheese.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Get thee behind me, Satan.
But it's purposeful.
It's purposeful. But on everything, cheese don't make it taste better.
It don't.
It's
Wait.
not on everything.
It really depends on what it is, but I do enjoy a good burger, no cheese. I do.
And no sauce?
No, I'm having sauce.
Who said no
Okay.
sauce?
But no cheese.
Listen, I'm just trying to
Pure
figure out where
sauce.
we draw the line in the sand.
Yeah, no.
I want both, honestly. I want a good cheese and I want sauce.
I mean, and that's
I'll
fine.
go cheese. Is that what we're gonna eat after this?
Probably tacos for sure.
I don't know. But I might walk in. I
Okay,
might
what's
walk
your
and go get
thing?
an empanada. I have a couple of things. So
I have one more.
The first one is eggs and macaroni and cheese. It does not belong. You do not need eggs in your macaroni and cheese in order for it to
I've had
taste
good-
bomb. Who gonna check me? Look at our reels.
I've
They know what it is.
I've had good macaroni and cheese with an egg.
Yeah, me too.
They know what it is.
Okay, you feel
All right,
strongly about
all
that
right,
one.
go
She
ahead.
said it's all in the room.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
All right.
It is all in the room. And then the other thing is hot McDonald's French fries and the ice cream that they have together. Use your ice cream to
Wendy's
scoop it.
Frosties.
I agree.
Yeah.
Frosties and Wendy's particularly.
Yeah.
Their Frosties and fries.
Yes.
McDonald's, I'm not
Never.
so like.
That's-
I mean,
No,
it,
no
it depends
Pascal.
on
Those two.
it depends on my mood. Sometimes I will go get fries from McDonald's and a Frosty from Wendy's and scoop it.
That I do understand that too.
I don't know, something about Wendy's fries because they're more like potato-y versus
Yeah,
McDonald's.
there's substance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like they're too.
But they're limp, which I
Yes.
don't. I think
I mean,
I
I
like
love
the- not a limp, but a limp.
But Wendy's sometimes don't be having enough like salt for
Oh, that's
me.
what I
Yeah.
love. That is
You gotta
not
have
too
the
But the
much.
salt
You
with
gotta have
the,
the
with the
salt with
chocolate
the-
frosty is what
I know,
like
but I
that.
love like minimal. Something about
Yeah.
that
Okay.
minimal salt.
Y'all,
See, I
y'all
only
reminded me
care about the
that
salt when I'm dipping it in my
that people
frosty.
think I'm weird, but I do not. No, we're
Oh,
not
you
crossing
are
those
weird.
things. I do not cross those. We do not cross the sweet and salty lines.
But not all the
And-
time.
and
But
all
every
my-
once in a while.
No, sometimes you have
Okay.
to.
You have
and
to.
for
I
my
need to throw this one
Sweet and
out.
savory.
one at a time.
What's one more?
I don't like my
ice cream.
I don't want my
and-
food to touch though. Like when I have a plate, like
Weirdo.
all of my things need to not touch. Like I don't
I
like
don't care about
my
that.
juices. It's like I don't want my collard greens and anything else to touch
Yeah.
on
Did
Did they
Thanksgiving.
make
Definitely
the
not.
French
Nothing better
fries
than
in the
having a
same
roll.
thing they made the ice cream with? If
No.
not, I'm not eating it. But I'll
So
eat my
you-
greens. I'll eat
So
my.
okay, you're a hypocrite.
I'm a purist. I like.
No, you're
the-
not.
I am. I like
She
the
is.
greens were made in this pot by themselves, and fine. If you made a green and something else casserole, then I'll eat it because all the things
They're
are
supposed to go together.
Right,
Yeah.
but so,
Casserole.
then you want your food separate too.
But I don't mind if it touches.
Okay.
Oh, so
You're
yeah,
not
no,
a
you're
purist
weird.
then.
Yeah, no.
Oh.
So-
Because they gotta be separate if they don't go together. Especially the dry and the juicy
you
things.
gotta, wait a
Uh-uh.
minute. See,
Wow.
I'm
We could never have
transitioning-
Thanksgiving together.
I put my plate in the order in which I'm gonna eat stuff.
Me too.
So if it touches, it's okay because I'm already transitioning to
But it
that
has
next
to.
thing.
You want it to know you want to touch, right?
No.
Yeah.
So like my
It has-
gravy and my dressing or stuffing, whatever, and my turkey can touch, but
Right.
nothing else
Yeah,
can.
no. Only the things that I'm eating together can touch. Other than that, they have to be separate. And I
Yeah.
eat everything like one thing at a time
Yes.
in the direction that
Unless
it's
I'm
gonna
touch,
end. I
unless I
always
want
end
to
with my
touch.
favorite thing, so that's how you know.
Oh, I would eat it. I
Yes.
want like my favorite in the beginning and the end. Like I just don't
Well,
want it to ever
no,
go
what you have
away.
to do is you have to take
This
a little bit of
conversation.
all of it and
We're
then
fat.
and then categorize what, because me, that's what I do. I
Yes.
taste everything, and then whatever is my favorite, I will save it for last.
Do you guys
Yeah,
eat
like,
French fries
yeah.
and chicken nuggets together? Because they have to go together.
No.
I have to eat them at the same time.
Mm.
Like I need a bite of a French fry and I need a bite of a nugget.
The only time that I eat,
No.
I start eating French fries first, only because I'm nervous that they're gonna get cold.
That
Yeah.
part.
So I start
That's
eating
the
them,
only
and then I eat all my
reason.
chicken nuggets really fast, and then I finish the fries.
Oh, I have to eat them like I'm like
Well, it depends on where you're going. If you go to Chick-fil-A, eat the Lord's chicken.
I hate Chick-fil-A's French fries. They're so gross.
I'm not eating.
Oh, I love their
their
French
French
fries.
fries.
I hate their French
but I'm
fries.
getting something else. But I need to say this one thing that is a norm for me that is not normal to other people.
Mhm.
But I've also been told that this is for people of color. That you have
Who are
to
you looking
back
around
your
at?
Right.
I
The
don't-
niggas outside.
Yeah. I want to make
The
sure that
non-niggas outside,
I want to make
sorry.
sure that everybody knows this, that you're supposed to back your car in when you park in a parking lot.
Preach,
And if you
tabernacle.
do not
okay?
back your car in, that is a safety procedure.
Unless you're at Costco.
No.
Mm,
Okay,
well,
but even then,
it's hard.
If you know your car, like me, I can back in and leave it just enough space where my back hatch will fly up and I can still insert my groceries.
No, I disagree. Unless if you're at Costco and you're not on a sidewalk,
so that
that's true. Your parking is different from the rest of us. But at Costco, unless you are backing up to a sidewalk, you need to drive in. It actually annoys me when I go to Costco and you don't back in.
It is aggravating when, especially when you have a shit ton of stuff and you can't get it all in the car. But for me, it's also more aggravating when I have to wait there 5 minutes and wait for somebody to let me out because I'm trying to back out into traffic.
Oh, no, they just back up. Like, you're gonna move.
No, I understand that.
Are you gonna die or are you gonna move?
That walk behind you, the cars that speed past behind you, it's like you're constantly having to be like,
Nah. I'm gonna go. Because what are you gonna do? Risk your life over some eggs and some Lay's potato chips? You're gonna back
outside
up.
Of Costco.
You risking a lot.
If you're not outside of Costco, if you're not backing your car in, then we need to have a conversation.
I know Maryland Costco's are different.
Okay, I'm gonna close this conversation with the thing that is weird to me that is normal to everybody else is the news.
What?
Because it's not news. It's all that shit is for ratings, and it's a lot of it is misinformation. But people go there to get information.
At least you
and it's really fucked
end
up.
like on a serious note. Weirdo.
That is the thought. That's the thought.
It's bizarre. The patriarchy
It's the thought that prompted this question. To be honest,
the news.
Can I check in on something that's weird?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Y'all make, when you eat cashews, do you like make butter in your mouth before you swallow?
What does that mean?
how much do you have to chew for that to be the reality?
Making nut butter in your mouth?
Okay.
No.
This just took a turn. But I want to know what you mean.
Good word for that. How much are you chewing it?
Yes, and how many?
Yeah,
much
y'all
water?
just like be eating cashews and you just
let it sit?
not like,
Cashews is not something I'm
just
sitting
go-
and eating.
You just let the nuts sit?
Why'd you
Okay, maybe it's just
do
me.
like that?
Why are you
Can you
like
call them
this?
as cashews, please? They're cashews and not.
Why did you have to hold your hand like that?
I felt it. P, you let the nuts sit in your mouth before you swallow? Is that what you're saying? I just want to clarify.
We're moving on.
Got it. It's a weird thing.
We should end this. I'm like, what else is there to do?
I'm just asking clarifying questions. I can Google it if you prefer.
Tangented more than any other tangent has ever tangented. Let's move on.
It's not on Google. That's why I asked.
I agree. Listen, I'm just trying to learn.
All right, this apparently was not a safe space for that question.
Not the day.
Okay, let's end it with aftershave. Lord, this is a long ass episode.
Wow, what a
Do
time.
we do
Wait, we didn't have meeting with the
Do we
week
have
either?
time?
Oh, no, let's just go to aftershave. Let's go straight to it. We've been talking for a long time.
We have.
Okay.
Who wants to go first?
I'm sorry.
People, you do and are fully aware of what aftershade is. Just want to make sure we're good. All right. Who would like to go first?
I guess I can go. I really like the gem that people had dropped earlier in the episode about just like everyone, if there's just an equal opportunity for everyone to disclose, there would just be a lot less of people feeling deceived or deception or of us having to qualify who you are or what you like or what have you. I think this really just centers around communication when before, no matter where you are in your getting to know someone or relationship phase, talking to someone, being open and honest about what you like, what you don't like, what you want, and being honest about who you are would just solve a lot of things. So I just want to encourage our listeners to feel comfortable in who they are. I think we are getting to a point in society where a lot of things are being normalized, where you don't have to qualify things and where we're just being very comfortable and people being comfortable in their own skin and who they are. And so I honestly look forward to the point in life where we don't have to say what our sexual preference is or who we're dating or having to come across that way, because it's just normal to just be who you are and being comfortable in your skin. So I just really want to encourage our listeners to be comfortable, love who you are, be comfortable in who you are, and that you are going to find people that love you genuinely for who you are, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Can I go first before I forget?
Second.
Sorry. Yeah, that's what I'm see. That's why I need to go.
And you're sober. Weird.
I know. Maybe I need a drink. Okay, what I would like to affirm to our listeners is a lot of what Carol mentioned about communication But I also think it's important to know that differences don't mean opposition.
Yeah.
That
Not the ops.
Right. That you can use your communication skills in whatever form that looks like. I think earlier today, we talked about written communication being your strong suit. And if that's what it is, then utilize that to create safe space for everybody involved. It doesn't just have to be for that individual. And just remember to, I mean, like I said, just because you're different doesn't mean you are opposing. As long as just work hard at embracing people's differences. So then that way we can be in a very open and receiving atmosphere to allow people to be however weird or not weird as they want to be, because that is their prerogative. And that is all.
Yeah.
I'll go next because mine was very similar. I kind of wanted to piggyback on a point that Phiwa made earlier about just believing people in their realities and how simple that can be if you don't bring your own baggage into it. And that you cause so much less harm by doing that than by trying to have a conversation that tries to sway, change, meter, any of that. Than anything else. And to be part of the support system is so much better than being a voice of protection or whatever you think that you're doing that is actually causing more harm than just meeting someone where they are. And that can be true in a vast number of scenarios outside of just the conversation around gender. So that's my affirmation for today.
People, you okay with signing off for us with the last aftershave? You good with that?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. So then I'm going to go next. And I think for me, this conversation highlighted for me that we need to remember that we're all in this process of growing into who we are. I want there to be a softness, not only with our own selves, but I want there to be a softness for others that I think that we are not allowing to happen. So I'm going to affirm for our listeners that the softness you seek for others to have with you is the same softness that others are seeking for you to have with them. And if we are going to get into a space of being able to one day not have to disclose, or when we are disclosing, it being something that everyone does so everyone feels a part instead of being ostracized, let's remember that the reason that we're seeking those things is because we all are seeking in our own personal journeys to be loved and affirmed for wherever we're at, all the same ways. I don't think that any one person, if we're dealing with our own sexuality, or if we're dealing with our gender, if we're dealing with what our blackness means to us, being a woman, being for our non-black individuals, for just reconciling what that looks like for you and how you played a role, and trying to find a way to be soft with other people. There's always going to be somebody that's going to be dealing with something that you may have differentiated, or made to be feeling like there's something that you can't quite understand. And we just I want to affirm for all of us that the softness that you will receive is the one in which you have to also give to others as well. We were talking earlier, and the thing that stuck out the most to me is that because I have been loved and affirmed by all the people that I'm speaking to right now, I've been able to grow into a person that I'm okay with. But it takes some people being soft and people understanding that while I need that softness, I also want to give that softness so we can all grow into the people we need to be. So I affirm for everybody, if you're taking that time to be able to do that with other people, you will be able to cultivate that within your own life and be able to make this world a little bit better and a little bit brighter for those who are really struggling when they don't have those same things.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lord.
Oh, God.
So I learned this chant on the streets of Ferguson by Assata Shakur. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. And that was like a thing, I had it as a mantra, right? And so fast forward a couple of years after the 2016 election, I was struggling with just a whole bunch of stuff, right? And a dear friend of mine who I met on the streets of Ferguson, a Black Jewish trans man of my age, was like, I've been studying Torah for a while, and I actually want to revise that. It's not our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to know that we are free.
That's
so
good.
I want to share that with the listeners, right?
Lord.
And so, I mean, when you first shared it with me, I was like, yeah, but they still out here killing us. But I keep reflecting on it. And it's actually literally shifted the whole trajectory of my life. If it is my duty to know that I'm free, I move differently. I'm not begging for acceptance. I'm not begging for scraps and crumbs that people will gift me with, right? When I know that God prepared a full meal, abundance, to be out here begging for someone's scraps, right?
Yeah.
And so my affirmation for all of us, and especially for those of us who are struggling with any kind of societal otherness, trans folk, I'm looking at you, and the many other ways, right? It is your duty to know that you're free. Your job, your school, your family, your state, your politicians, your country may not understand that yet. But it's your duty to know that you're free. And not just to know that you're free, but to live like you're free, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody may not know it yet. And I want to also this affirmation that I may not know you, but I do know that I love you truly and deeply, from my hair follicles to my toenails.
Jesus.
And it matters to me that you are here, that you are well, that you are seen, that you are loved, that you have the space to be who the fuck you need to be.
Yeah.
Because God already ordained that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is our duty to know that you are free. It is your duty to know that we are free. And I know I can't be free if you're not free. And so that is my affirmation for all of us, is that we may even taste a little bit that freedom. So we remember that delicious taste, or we can come back to it. If your freedom doesn't have mayo on it, you don't have to. If it's got pickle juice on it, so be it, right? But your taste buds were made for you.
Yeah.
Your freedom is important to me, for our freedom together. And until you know that, I'm going to hold that for you.
Yes.
Oh.
No, I love this.
That was great.
Yeah, we
would
passed the
usually
collection
have
plate twice.
Yeah, we would usually have a hand clap sound for you, but that side of our soundboard is off today, so we'll do it in real time.
Thank you so much for talking to us today.
So much. It was such a pleasure having you.
Yes, thank you.
So
If you're ever
wonderful.
in the DC area, please hit up Saya. We can come and chat in person. I know we would all love that.
Very much so.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Already know.
We love that. We love that.
Yes.
Awesome.
And bring back too.
So, before we leave, if our listeners want to engage with you socially, would you mind sharing your social media handles, or?
It might only be like 12 people, but I mean, don't expect your mentions to be in shambles.
Respectfully.
Yeah, about that. Yeah, so I'm actually in the process of cleaning up my digital presence, or trying to be a little more active. So I'm more kind of professional, fancier words. I'm at Rev Langeni, RevLangeni, or just RevLangeni.com. But my kind of my personal, not so active presence, where I'm sharing memes and funny things, is the Phiwa, ThePhiwa. And it's mostly on Instagram, but yeah. So at Rev Langeni or at the Phiwa.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
so much.
I love that Instagram
Thank
is
you all.
your main social media too. Because
Yes, we're only on Instagram, yes, and YouTube.
Yeah. Had a quiet exodus from Facebook. I'm like,
hello.
Mine
Didn't
was
we
not
all?
quiet. Mine was immediate.
Yeah.
I'm only on there to wish family members happy birthday.
Yeah.
Not even.
So I don't have to call.
Not even.
Wow, we're terrible. All right, y'all. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yes.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
take care.
Thank you.